a complete inventory management system inside Excel. Hi, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and in this week's video, I'm going to show you how to create this incredible inventory management complete with sales orders, purchases, products, customers, suppliers, and a whole lot more. I'm going to show you an incredible way to add brand new customers, suppliers, or products that I've never taught before. It's going to be an incredible training you won't want to miss. We're going to do it all from scratch. Every design element from scratch right in front of you, starting from a blank worksheet. I cannot wait, so let's get started. All right, thank you so much for joining us today. I've got a really epic training today that you are not going to want to miss. The inventory management system. It's going to be absolutely complete with a dashboard. We are going to be able to add, update, and sales orders. We're going to have that. We're going to have purchase orders. We'll be able to add and update purchase orders. Products, you're going to be able to add, update, search for products. And also we are going to have suppliers and customers, all of them on the same sheet. And best of all, we're going to build that all from scratch, designed completely from scratch, right in front of you today. So it's going to be an epic training. You're not going to want to miss that. In fact, I asked just a few things for you. If you could go ahead and click that subscribe, and also make sure the notification icon bell. I create these trainings each and every Tuesday, something incredible with Excel, because I want to make you successful with Excel and not just teach you Excel. We build these application templates each and every week. It's absolutely free. All you need to do is click the link in the download description there, and I'll make sure to get this workbook template over to you. If you do want to support the channel, so many great ways to do that. In fact, I'll be creating an update to this template just as I do each and every week. So if you have some ideas you want to add that I didn't quite add in this training, you want something me to focus on, or you want me to fix something, I do that on our Patreon platform and now also YouTube. All you need to do is just go ahead and click the link for Patreon, and I'll create a brand new updated workbook along with a brand new updated training each and every week. Next Monday, I'll be doing that. So make sure you get your suggestions in and join the platform. Joining that platform also allows you to get tons of other benefits, including a PDF codebook that helps you know exactly what type of code is in these applications. Along with early bird specials, you'll get access to the workbook and training early, and a whole bunch of other things. So that's on Patreon, and that helps support the channel. All right, let's get started. This is what we are going to be creating. We're going to be creating an inventory management system. We can simply search for a customer. We'll have a search for customer. We can be able to add a brand new customer if we want to. In fact, we're going to be using something that I've never used before. Adding a brand new customer is just as easy as we can do this. We can just simply add it in if we want to do that, and adding in an address here. And then all we need to do is just click the check, and that customer is going to be added in automatically. So if we want to search for that, we can see that we have now that search. So really, really cool search features. Not only are we going to be able to do that, but we're going to be able to add, update, and delete records with this brand new method that I've never taught before. Not only for customers, we're going to be able to have that same feature for suppliers. If we want to add a brand new supplier, we can do that. And I'm also going to have that for products. In fact, we're going to have, here's products. If we want to do that for products, we can search for any type of product, just search there, and then the filter is going to come through. So each customer, supplier, and product will have add new, will have update, will have filters and search. And if that's not enough for a training, we are going to have purchases. We're going to be able to create brand new purchase orders. We'll be able to put in a supplier. We will be able to add items that we're purchasing here simply by selecting the items, and we're going to be able to save and update that. Also, we're going to be able to do the same for sales orders. Sales orders, we're going to be able to add a customer here. Again, adding that product here, selecting from a drop-down list of products. We're going to be able to have that. And then, of course, we're going to be able to save and update that. We'll be able to also search for sales orders, search for, if we want to search for previous, we can simply do that. We can do the same thing for purchases and sales. And to top it all, well, of course, we'll be able to print the order, add and save and update, and top it all off, we're going to have a dashboard. Dashboard is going to show our total sales by month, May profit, 2000 current year profit, the top products on hand, purchases by month, and a whole lot. So we're going to be doing all the design from scratch, and we'll see We're going to get to all the code as well. I'm going to show you every single part. It's going to be probably a little bit longer training than usual because it's a big application. You're welcome to watch this training as many times as you want. We're going to show you all the design aspects. I'm going to start from an absolute blank workbook. I've got a blank workbook right here. Actually, it's a blank worksheet, but I still have the data. So we're going to go over the data inside that. Just a brief overview of the data. We've got an admin screen with just a few settings. We've got some sales tax defaults, months, and a date range I'm considering using. We have some dashboard data. This is the data that's going to cover for our dashboard. I've got a customer list. This is the original list of our customer. We've got suppliers. We've got a product list. We've got an order list. And we have the order items. So these are the items that are associated with every single order. So we have all of that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one. We're going to start from scratch on this one in which we have this inventory management. This is the main sheet that we have here in this workbook here. However, this workbook, it's all programmed out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this template and I'm going to slide it over to the side on another screen that I have. That way we can focus on the blank one and I can use the one as a reference. Okay, so we're going to get started right away. What's the first thing we want to do? Well, we want to really use two columns just as I do in other applications. Two columns are going to be for admin. I'm going to drop this down here so I can show the tabs and commands because we're going to be working a lot with the formatting and things like that. These columns are going to be hidden. So we're going to use these for admin purposes and then we'll hide them. Okay, so another thing what I want to do is I want to add a title here, but this title here for the group, what's called inventory management, we are going to use, I'm going to use a shape, a text shape for that because I don't want it cell-based. I don't want it cell-based. So we're going to call this, again, inventory management system. And I'll probably spell a few things wrong, so bear with me. I'll do my best. Shape format, I want to center that and put it in the middle. And I want to give it a probably, let's say 30. We're going to use this color. This is going to be our standard color. I'm going to give it this. And then I'll bold it, and then I'll put it in just a font that's similar to something like Arial Random Font. Okay, I like that. That looks good. Now we're going to also have a logo, and I'll put some shapes in and things like that in a little bit later. I want button sets to go across here, as you saw. We're going to have 6 different button sets for customers, so we're going to add those and then the icons associated with that. Okay, but first of all, on this, I do not want any fill, so we're going to go shape fill on this one, no fill, and I want no outline on this, so we'll do no outline. Okay, so we're going to have a background that we're going to use on this, a nice background. We'll use a page layout, and then a background we'll be putting in a background. Now, what does that background look like? Well, I've already got it stored. I'm going to work offline. I don't know why that always comes up, and I'm going to use this background that I have. Okay, so that's kind of a nice background, and we'll get rid of the grid lines in a bit. So what I want to do is I want to put in some additional shapes right here, saving our work as we go along, as we always want to do. Now, those shapes that we're going to be using, we're just going to use this background. So I'm just going to insert shape. I'm just going to use this square shape, and this is the one that we're going to be using for our menu. Okay, we're going to give it a color. The shape fill, we're going to use this same color. I don't need a line on this shape, so we're going to say no outline on this. I want a size, so we're going to do, let's say 0.6, and then we'll do a width of 2.2. Okay, so that's good. I like the way that's the size of that. Then I want to give it some labels in here. So we're going to do customers. So I'm going to call this customers. This will be our first one. And then I am going to, let's say, right justify it and put it in the middle. So that's about what I want. But what I want to do is I want to put a little bit of a spacer in between that and also increase the font. Font size will set to 18. Okay, that looks good. Well, we can also, another way to do it is just to center it or left justify it and then move it over. So maybe we want to move it over a little bit. Many ways we can do it. We want to space, we want to leave room for the icon in here. So we're going to add that in. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and right justify and then we'll give it a nice margin. So we're going to use Control F1 to add that. And we'll go into the text options here. And we're going to give it a right margin. So what we want to do is right around 0.2. Okay, that's nice. Okay, so I want to have room for the icon. So there we've got our customers. Now what we're going to be doing is I'm going to duplicate that, and then we're going to create them for each button. So I'm going to use Control D, and then I'm going to space it out accordingly, right about like here, and then Control D one more time, D, D, and D. Okay, I like the way that looks. So we've got this one's going to be for customers. We're going to add this one for suppliers. So we'll put in suppliers. Then we want another one button for products. So put in the products here. We need another. We want to show this one's going to be for our purchases. Or purchase orders is another way to do it. And then another one we want to use for our sales order. And lastly, for our dashboard. Okay. So now that we've got all that, we're going to put in our icons also. So now that we have everything set up just the way we like it, as far as the button's concerned, we also want connector lines. That's going to help us too. I also want to give these unique names so that we can work on that, and that's going to help us win the code. So this one's going to be called menu item 1. And then I'm just going to copy the menu item text here and hit enter. That's going to name that button. I'm going to go here to the second one and put 2. Likewise, this one's going to be 3. This is going to help us in the code because we're going to be looping through these buttons. We want to change the color. So by having very similar names, it will help us run a loop through that. And I'll be showing you that. And this one, last one's 5. So we have 6 different buttons, all with very similar names. Just the number of them is different. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'll add a little bit more spacing on the right side so that we all have unique spacing on that. We can format that. That's another way to do that. Going into the text options, we're going to make this 0.3. Okay, so that moves them over a little bit to the right margin. So we have a little more spacing. We're going to add in our icons and we're going to add in some connector lines. So I'm going to insert shapes and then a line. And then what we'll do is we'll connect it here and here. Although they don't necessarily have to be connected, we are going to give the shape outline the same color. And also I want the size, the weight of it's going to have to be right around, let's say 3 point or something like that. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it. And then I'll move it over here. And we can do the same thing. We can use connectors, and that way when we space them out, everything has to be connected. You can also use Control D. That's also going to work. Again, just connecting these. And that way when we space them out, they're all going to be, although they're relatively spaced out, just about right. So we're just connecting them to the shapes. And that's the last one. Now that they're all connected, we want to make sure that they're all in the same line. I'm going to hold down the Control, selecting all the items. I want to make sure they're all in the same line here. And I want to make sure that they're all horizontally spaced. Okay, that looks good. We've got all of our information here that we need for our menus. We're going to add in our icons. So I'm going to go Insert, Picture, this device. I've got some icons saved right in here. We're going to add them all. So I'm going to adding them all the ones that I've saved. I'm going to insert that. Okay, very good. I'm going to set them all height right around 0.3 or maybe a little bit bigger than that. I think we'll use a little bit, and then some of them will size a little bit smaller. Okay, so they're all sized right about 4.2. Now all we're going to do is just move them. This add new, I'm not going to use this just yet. We're going to use these add new. Okay, so we have this one. This is going to be used for our customers. So I'm going to bring this over here. That's our customers here. And then now what we want to have here is our printer. This one's going to be, we're going to use this a little bit later on. This one here with the $sign, that's going to be used for our purchases. So we'll drag that up over to purchases. Next up, I want the sales order, and we also have our dashboard. So we've got our dashboard icon right about here. We've got here, this is going to be our suppliers, so an icon for the suppliers. And we also have one check. This one's going to be used in our form, so I'll drag that over here. This one's going to be for our products. And lastly, we have for our sales order. Okay, that's looking really good. I like the way that that looks. Now we just want to make sure, again, everything gets lined up, and then we're going to give them very unique names. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line everything up just right, vertically, so that they're lined up vertically. Okay, I'm going to undo the selection tool right here. Now I want to give it a very specific name. It's important that we're going to name these. These are going to be called menu icon 1 and 2 and 3 and so on and so forth. So menu icon, and then I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to add a 1 to this. So this is going to be our first. Now keep in mind that the same number, this is going to be important. Menu icon has 8 characters plus the number. Menu item also has 8 characters, and that's important. Okay, so this is going to be called menu icon 1. This one's going to be called menu icon 2, and you can assume that what we're going to add for the rest. Now, this is very important then, because we don't know, when we select a menu item, we don't know exactly what they're going to be selecting on, whether it's the button or the icon, but we want to extract that number from each one. So it's very important that we can extract the number, whether they're selecting on the icon or they're selecting on the button. Okay, so I've named each one menu icon 1, menu item, icon 2, and so on and so forth, all the way to the dashboard, menu icon 6, and menu item 6. Okay, everything looks really good. That's just the way I want it. Now, what I'm going to be doing is we're going to be selecting on these. Now, I want to group everything together, and I think that's really important so that it doesn't move. And we're going to be hiding and unhiding certain columns. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that that group, the menu along with the title, always stays in the same place and, of course, at the same size. So I'm going to select everything in my selection tool, and I'm going to group it. And the next important thing is we're going to use Control 1, and we're going to make sure that the properties portion of this always does not move but size with cells. So we don't want it to size with cells, but we do want it to move. And that's for the whole group. Okay, so we can undo the selection tool. Now we've got our menu pretty much ready. So let's go ahead and start with adding some information in. The first one I really want to add is the sales and purchases. So the purchases and sales order, both of those are going to add in, they're going to use the same exact screen. So in fact, I'm going to, let's just add this and make this centered. There we go. I like that a little bit. Oops, one space too many. All right. Remember I mentioned columns A and B we're going to use for admin use. We're going to start adding some information that's going to be important for that. Now, when each tab is selected, I want to know what tab has been selected. So I'm going to put that right here in B2. So we're going to put this, we're going to call this selected tab, and whatever tab has been selected is going to go right here. So maybe this is going to be something like purchases, and it'll be VBA that takes care of that for us. Okay, so what else do I want? I want to know when the order is going to be loading. Now, order load. So that means when we search for an order, whether it's a purchase order or it's a sales order, it's going to load. So that's going to be a true or false. I want to know that. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to know the order number. Both purchases and sales have order numbers. So I want to know what is the order number, and I want to put that in here. I also want to be able to have what is the row that's associated with the order row. And that's going to be here. So if we take a look at orders, I want to know what row is associated with that. That's going to be important. We're going to go over some named ranges that are going to help us. Let's get this worked out. What is the next order number? So when we create a brand new purchase order or sales order, I want to know the next order number. So we're going to put that right here inside B6. I also want to know the selected order row. And then also I want to know the search order row. Selected order row we may not use. Search order row. So when the user runs a search, we're going to put a search up here. I want to know what row is associated. If they put in number 1 or order number 2 or whatever, I want to know the row that's associated with that. I also want to know what the customer or supplier. Remember, in a purchases, we're going to be selecting suppliers that we're purchasing from. So I want to know the row associated with that. If it's a sales order, they're going to select a customer, and I want to know the customer row. So again, we need to extract either the supplier row or we're going to select the customer row. So we need to extract those. And I want to know what row is associated with that. I'm going to call this the customer or supplier row associated. Okay, next up, I want to know the selected customer row. So we're going to call this selected customer row. Now, that basically means when we're selecting a customer, I want to know what row. When we have a list of customers, I want to know what row the customer is on here. Okay, so I also want to know the next customer ID. When I create a brand new customer, I want to know what ID is going to be associated with that customer. So we're going to call that the next customer ID. Now, I also want to know the supplier row. So remember we had a list of suppliers here. I want to know what row has been selected. So we're going to call this the selected supplier row. Next up, I want to know the next supplier ID. So you kind of get the hang of it. The next supplier ID. What is the next supplier ID number? We need to know that. Lastly, we're going to focus on products, right? So we want to know the selected product row and also the next product ID. Okay, so this can help us. So we've got all those. Let's give these a color here, a unique color so we can differentiate those. And also I'm going to give these a color here. Let's do this in blue. So these are associated with the order. So I'm going to give those a blue color. And also this one's going to be yellow because this one's going to be for every tab. Okay, so here's the idea. So let's left justify these here. We will right justify this here. And I'm going to put borders all the way around. The color is insignificant of the border. Okay, so that's it. So that's all the admin we really need for this. So basically, when I make a selection on customers, this changes to customers. When I click suppliers, this goes to suppliers. So that's how it's going to work. That's going to let us know. So we can always look here. We know what tab has been selected. These we're going to be using very soon when we create the customer buttons and things like that. Okay, so what is it that we want? Let's focus on the order, right? That's going to be both. Again, we're going to use certain columns. I'm going to use certain columns both for the purchases and sales orders. So it's going to be almost the same. We do not need to use separate columns because I just need to change a few text. They're almost all the same. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing what I want to do is I want to set aside some information. I want to know what is the number. Are we in purchases or sales orders? So that's going to be important. So we're going to use a formula here, and I'm going to just basically run an outline of all the rows that I want to focus on. So we're going to go all the way through H and maybe down to, let's say, 7 here. So I'm going to bring that. So I'm going to format those. This is going to be the top of our orders. So that's going to be for both purchases and sales. I'm going to give it a border. We're going to use that unique color that we've been using, that blue. That's our theme color for this week. We're going to wrap some borders around that. So that's going to be the top here. Now we're going to move these over here. We don't need them quite yet, but very, very soon we're going to be using them. Okay, so what do I want here? Well, I'm going to put some information up here. So I want to put the order date here. I want to put the subtotal on the right. And I want to put the tax if there's any tax, and I want to put the total here. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right justify these fields, and I want to put these here in white. So I'm going to make sure the fields the user is going to be adding in, so I want to make sure those are all in white. And I'm going to format those cells and also give it that inside border of our color, and not there. And then here, I'm going to give it that dotted line here. That should be sufficient, and we can do a full line. Okay, so now we've got our order date here. So I also want a supplier. Now, I want to put either in this field. So here is also going to be white. I'm going to color this white here. Inside here, what I would like to have is I would like to have some either the customer drop-down list or the supplier. Here, I want to have the label. So either it's going to say supplier or customer. How do we know the difference? Well, when I select here, I know it's going to be customer. So if B2 is customer, I know we're going to enter a customer here. So how do we know that? Well, what we can do is just use an if-then statement. So we're going to say if equals if B2 equals, we'll put in customers. Let's do capitals because we're going to basically do customers. Then we're just going to put in customer. That's easy. That's all we need to do. Otherwise, supplier. And it's because we're going to use, remember, we're using the same thing for both customers and suppliers. So I'm going to right justify that. And so basically when this changes to customers, right, this is going to change. Otherwise it's going to be, so that way we know what we can use. I'll just change this to customer actually, because it's a single customer and a single supplier. This is going to be a drop down list. I'm going to format this. I'm going to put a border at the bottom just to separate this here, and we can use the top. Let's go ahead and use our blue color here. I'm going to use the outline all the way around, clicking OK. So I want the name here and I want the address here. So I'm going to format those cells. And then also the border on the left and the right. We'll get rid of those grid lines because they don't look too pretty here. So view, grid lines. Okay, so now it's looking a little bit more cleaner. All right, so here what I want is the name. I want to know what's it going to be. Is it going to be a purchase order? And I'm going to expand this just a little bit so we can have a little bit larger. So I want to know this is going to be called either purchase order or it's going to be called sales order, right? So we can use something similar to this. I'm just going to copy this. And so what is it? If it's a customer's, we know it's going to be a sales order. So I'm going to put in sales order. Otherwise, we're going to call it purchase order. If it's a supplier, we're going to purchase order. Okay, so now that we have that purchase order, I'm going to give it a little bit of a color. So I'm going to center that and center it, and I'm going to increase the font a little bit, change it to our color. So we can see that bolded up a little bit bigger. Okay. I like that. That looks good. So it's going to be, so basically, again, all this is, it's a sales order, or if it's purchases or anything else, it doesn't matter. It's going to change to purchase order. That's exactly what I want. Okay, perfect. So remember, this field B2 is going to change when we click on those menu items at the top. It's going to change automatically. Perfect. So I like that. That's looking really good. So here's going to be, we're going to have I want to put the product in here. I want to put the description in here. Next up, we are going to have the quantity. Now, when we have a sales order, it's going to be the sales price. When we have a purchase order, it's going to be the purchase price, right? So we need to make a dynamic column header on this one. Again, so I'll just copy this here, and I'll paste that right down here. And then in this case, it's a sales order, right? If it's customers, we know it's going to be sales price. Otherwise, if we're actually purchasing something, it's going to be the purchase price. So it's going to be a dynamic header, purchase price. Okay, perfect. I like that. Again, so it goes sales price, and then also we're going to have the total here. Okay, we're going to format that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all the rows. I'm going to center that. We're going to format the cell. Sorry, it's off the screen. You can use Control 1 as well. And also, I'm going to add in some borders here in the middle, here, here, and here. I want to make the font. I'm going to put that, keep it black, but put it bold. And then also, I want the fill, and I'm going to use the fill effects, and we're going to use some theme colors for this. And we're going to add this here, this middle theme color, and yeah, like that. We'll just do, actually, it's a bit dark. We'll do this medium and then to light. So it's just going to be a light blue theme. Clicking OK. All right, so I like that. Product, description, quantity, sales price. Again, sales price if it's a customer. Suppliers will get the purchase price. Okay, so see how we can dynamically change it based on whatever is located in B2. Okay, very good. We also want to be able to search for an order. So search. Now, search order, this won't change regardless if it's a purchase order or sales order. Search order, and then I want to have a white here. So that's just going to be allowing the user to search the order. I'm going to format, again, format those cells, or Control 1 works just fine. We want to format those so the border around it, giving that our distinct color border all the way around, and then a dotted line in the center. Okay, so basically what they want to do is they're going to put in the order number here. It's going to search and display that order. Now also we've got to put some button sets in here. So I'm just going to copy it. I got the right. I'm going to Control C this and then Control V. I'm not going to duplicate it because I don't want it in that group. I'm going to bring it down here, and of course I'm going to reduce the font size. Here is where we're going to have, let's just say 12 is sufficient for us. This is going to be our add new order. So add new order. We'll shrink it down. I'm going to right justify that here. And then also we can get rid of the format this shape. We'll just use the standard under the text options. We'll use the standard margin here. So it will do 0.15 is fine. And then bringing it a little bit less and then just reducing it to about 0.2. Okay, so I like that there. That looks pretty good. We want to make sure that we have room for the icon. We've already added the icons here. So we can have add new order, print order, save, and then update. So these are where those 4 icons are going to come into handy. So we'll bring that right about up here. Okay, that's looking very good. Let's change that to 0.1. We're a little bit constrained with space. Okay, looking good. Add new order. So I'm going to just control that. We need one for duplicate that. I'm going to duplicate right down here. Right down here, we're going to have this called save or update. So just call it, whoops, save or update. And we're going to use this button for saving new records or updating existing ones. So save or update, sufficient enough. If you want to have that more of a centered, you can center that. And then we can just add some spaces here to do that. That gives it a little. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate these buttons using Control D. It's going to duplicate them, and I'm going to bring them a little bit over here. Now these buttons don't need the same width, so I'm going to go in. They're a little bit smaller buttons. So the width will do 1.35 on that one. This one's going to be called print order. So we're going to change this to print order, and this one's going to be called delete order. So we can delete order. Okay, very good. Now these icons here, I'm going to use Control, and I'm going to resize them, and then we're going to change that to 0.2, and then we'll just go, okay, so that's sufficient. I'm going to bring all of them to the top. Now, because we created those buttons first, if I move them over, they would be under these buttons, so I want to move them to the top. So all we need to do is just bring them right up to the top. Okay, good. So now that they're, we just need to move them over. Okay, we're going to right justify this one and get some space. So we got a delete order. We're going to print. This one can be centered, and then we can add another space here to give it some spacing, proper spacing. Okay, add new order, we'll take on the plus. Save, update, we'll take on the okay, so that's looking really good. We'll line things up, make sure that the icons are all lined up vertically and horizontally. I'm going to do the same thing for this. Everything good. Now we're going to make sure that they're vertically lined here. Everything looks good, including the buttons here. We're going to just simply use that. Okay, I like that. That's the way it looks. Looks very good. So now we're going to save our work. We can undo the selection, and now we're going to group them accordingly. Holding the control down, I'm going to group them individually, and then I'm also going to group them as a whole together. That's important, so I'm going to use that, grouping them. And we're going to give them a very specific name to this group. And the reason we want to do that is because we need to hide this group. If it's not a purchase order or not a sales order, we need to hide the group. So very important. So again, holding down the control and all these. If there are any other shapes with it, we'd also group that. I'm going to group them right here, and I'm going to call this order group. Order group. Okay, so we want to make sure to hide this group unless we're on purchases. We don't, when we're showing customers, suppliers, products, we don't want, or dashboard, we don't want this group to show up. Okay, close it, making sure that we've got our spacing right. That looks pretty good. We've got a nice look to the screen already. Okay, very good. We can do a little bit of formatting. We know this is going to be a short date format, so we can change that to short date, and we know this is going to be either currency or we can use accounting. Either one is fine for that. All right, very good. And the same thing for the purchase price and the total. These are all, we'll go down to, let's say 108. That'll give us about 100 lines, which is sufficient enough. Also giving them the currency account and then the product description. Now what I'd like to do is when I start adding some information here, I want some conditional formatting to show up here. So I've got some different rules. When I want to know exactly, we're going to have really 3 different rules. One is going to be for alternating rows. And then I want to associate when I create a brand new one or I select a row, I want to have a conditional formatting on that as well. Okay, so let's add some conditional formatting for that. And we're going to do that right now. So now what I want to do is I want to add multiple rules. And it's going to be all the way from D, starting 9, all the way to 8. So I'm going to do conditional formatting, manage rules. We're going to add some new rules. So a new rule, we use a formula. Now it's going to be under 2 conditions. So it's going to equal and. There's 2 conditions. The first one is I want to make sure that there is a value in, of course, D9. However, in this case, I'm going to move one row up to D8. And that means that we're going to color every single row. And of course, it's every single row. So we don't want the $ before the 8. And that means I want the first blank row colored. And I'll show you why that's important. D8 does not equal empty. And the next condition is we're going to use a different color for both odd and even rows. So for even rows, mod of row 2. So for those, I want to give them a color. So I'm going to do a format. And we're going to just do a fill. We'll do a fill. Let's do a little bit lighter color. So I've got some lighter colors here. I'm going to use this as a lighter color here. And that's about the same. And we'll click OK. And I want some borders on that. So we're going to use our color here. I'm going to use our consistent color. And I'm going to use a dotted line on the left, the bottom, and the right. Okay, so this is going to be, I'm going to copy this. This is going to be only for even rows. And so there has to be a value in the row above, clicking OK. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another new row, but this is going to be for even rows. So I'm going to paste in that, for odd rows, basically what I want to do is this is going to be a 1. So what we're going to do is let's do backspace 1. Okay, good. So now what I want to do is I want to format those very similar, except the fill is going to be white and the border is going to be that same color border, also on the left, using the dotted line, the left, the bottom, and the right. Okay, so it's going to give us a nice look and feel. So as we add data, the rows will automatically, and we're going to click apply. Okay, so now by using row 8, you see how this row is colored? I want that. That means as soon as I put something in here, the next row, so it shows the user the next row is available for that product. We'll be putting in the product names here. And that's what I want. Now I actually want to add one more rule. When I select a row, I want that row to show up. Right? There's additional features that we can add. That row is going to be based on what's in B7. So if I do 12, that means I want that row to show up very differently. So how do we do that? I'm going to go in and manage those rules, and I actually have to make this, I'm going to make this all the way to 108, and then 108. That's going to give us 100 rows, so 108. Okay, so that'll apply to all the rows. So now I'm just going to copy that applies to, and I'm going to do a brand new rule, and I'm going to use a formula, and it's going to be equals based on the row. Where's the row? It's in B7. So B7 equals the row. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to format that, but very distinctly. We're going to give it a fill, and then fill effects, and we want to make sure that we've given a fill effects of something based very close to our color. I like this. This looks pretty good. We'll go down to about here, and that's a nice color. I'm going to go dark color, and then a font of bold and then white. And the only other thing is when you have a selected row, which is going to be our selected row as we select it, you want to make sure that this is on the top. You don't want it down here. You want that selected row to take precedence all the way on the top. So clicking OK. All right, that looks really good. Okay, so we can see as we change that, we know that selected row. Now, I'm not sure how, let's change that to 11. Okay, the only other thing we needed to do is we needed to make sure that we apply to all the rows up to 108. So I want to do that now. Copying this and pasting it in here is going to ensure that it's also the row 108. Okay, clicking OK, because there's a lot of features I want to add to this in the selected row. Now, when we make a selection change, that row is going to change. We're going to use VBA to do that. Okay, very good. So we've got that. As we clear, we see that we have the information. All right, and we can clear this out too. So everything's looking really good. We've got the emphasis that most, but I also want to put the order number here. And I want to put, is it a purchase or is it put the order number. Now we know the associated order is going to be here. So we have the order here. So if I know the order, I want to put that order number here. How can we do that? Okay, so what I want to do is basically just put in whatever's here, and I want to put in, so purchases list equals, if, I forgot the quotation marks, this equals customers, right? Then we know, excuse me, if we did purchases, then we know it's going to be a purchase order, right? Equals purchases, we'll do quotation mark, purchases, then we know it's going to be a purchase order. So then I'm going to do purchase order, purchase, because I want to put that purchase order number in here, purchase order, and then we'll do a space, and then number, okay? Otherwise, what? Otherwise, it's going to be a sales order number. We could use the number. And okay, so then all we need to do, close it out, and I want to put what is that sales? We'll do a space if we want to, probably not a space. Then what we can do is whatever the number is. Where's that number located? It's located in B4. Okay, and then that's all we need to do. So now we see it says sales order number 1. So I'm going to right justify it, and then I'm going to give it a bold here, give it a look, put it center here. Yeah, I like it centered here. Increase the font. So we see the sales order number 1. So if this were to change to, let's say, purchases, it would say purchase order number, purchase. Okay, so then it's going to change to purchase order number 1. So we see how it becomes dynamic again based on that. All right, very good. So we've got the basis of it. What I'd like to do is I'd like to put in some named ranges here, and I'd like to put in some formulas here. Before we do that, let's go over some of the named ranges that exist. Just a brief overview here. Again, a list of customers here we have. We have a list of suppliers here, of course, with a supplier ID and all their information. We have a list of products here and some named ranges associated with that. We have a list of orders here with the order date, the customer or the supplier, basically the name, date, and the total. And we have order items. These are individual items associated with the order. The order number, the order type, is it a purchase or a sale, the product, the description, quantity, price, and the row, and the database row, which we'll be going over. So that's it. So I've got some named ranges that it's associated. And let's go over some of those named ranges right now. So formulas, name manager, and we'll take a look at some of them. We're going to skip the criterias. We have a customer ID. So basically all of these are using offset formula, which we've gone over in the past, but basically offset is going to allow us to dynamically increase that name range as we add. So we've got customer ID. I've got customer name here. I've got, let's take a look at order ID. So we got an order ID for based on all the orders. I have the order total. So there's going to be, we're using these for our graphs, an order type here. So we've got an order type. And we've got order item quantity. We'll go over these a little bit later on. I want to go over the product ID, products ID, product name. That's going to be helpful. And lastly, we're going to go over suppliers, supplier ID, and supplier name. Okay, so now that we kind of understand, we just have different named ranges, we can start to fill those in. What is the order row? If I take a look in the orders, I see the first order row starts in row 4. So if I'm going to return, if I want to know what row order number 1 is, I can use a match to do just that. So we're going to do that. Equals if error, and we're going to run a match. What are we matching it on? I'm matching on whatever is located in B4. Matching, I'm looking up whatever's in B4. And I'm going to use the looking up. I want the order ID. So order ID here. This is the one that I'm looking up. And I want an exact match. So we're going to use 0 on that. Now we're going to add 3 because we want the row associated. If there's an error, we're going to do double spaces. And that's going to tell us order number 1 is on row 4. What is the next order row? If you've seen my videos before, you kind of understand this, but the repetition helps. You can use if error in case there's no data. I'm going to use the max of all the orders ID. As long as they're numerical, it's fine. I want to know the max number. And of course, I want to know the next one because that's going to get us our next. If there's no data, we need to put in something, so we'll put in 1. That's okay. Perfect. So the selected order row, we went over that already. The search order row is going to be based on what? So if I put in 1 here and I'm searching for 1 here, let's left justify that. I want to know what row is associated to make sure it's a row. So it's called the search order row. Let's maximize this. And it's going to be basically exactly the same as this, except we're using a different source. So we're going to copy that. I'm going to go right down here. But instead of looking at B4, we're going to look right here into K4. So I want to know the row that's associated, right? So if I change this to 2, this is going to change to 5. That's how we know. As long as there's a row here, we know that there's an order that they're looking up. Okay, now I want to know the customer supplier row. So we need to use, again, I'm going to use an if statement because we don't know if it's a purchase order, it's going to be a supplier. If it is a sales order, it's going to be a customer. So I want to know the row that's associated. So we need to use an if there. So again, let's do that. Equals if This is purchases. So then we know we're looking up a vendor, right? So then what we're going to be doing is we're going to use what I want to know the row that's associated with that based on the name. So we're going to use match again. Match, what am I matching here? I'm matching whatever the supplier is located in here. And I'm going to look it up in the supplier name, right? Supplier name, we're looking up the supplier name and we want an exact match. And we want to add 3 because it's the row that's associated with that. Otherwise, what if it's false? If it's not purchases, we're looking up a customer, and we're going to have to wrap that in all if error as well. So then in that case, we're going to match based on a customer. So we're looking up the customer name here, and it's going to be based on the customer name range, and we want an exact match. And again, we're adding 3. Okay, so that's going to be the end of our if statement, but I do want to, in case there's an error, I'm going to wrap it all in if error. And then what we want to do is just going to show empty. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so now as long as we have this should be supplier, right? So if we take a look at a supplier and we see ABC Company is one of our suppliers and we know that they're on row 4, and I put in ABC Company here, we know we want to make sure that this row goes to 4, which is correct. That's exactly what I want. Okay, very good. Now we're going to get into the selected customer row, the next customer ID. We can use this selected customer row when I have a list of customers and I select a customer, it's going to show up here. The next customer ID, we can know that. If error, we can add that in now. It's going to be basically all the customer IDs plus 1. If there's no value, we're going to return 1. Okay, so we need to know that. Oops, customer ID, the max, forgot the max. If error, max, we're looking for the max of customer ID max. That's what I want. Okay, so now that we have the max, and I also want to do the same thing for the supplier and the same thing for the product. So again, equals if error, we're going to use the max based on the supplier ID. Supplier ID plus 1 gets us the max. If there's no value, we're going to return 1. Skipping 2, we want the next product ID. We're going to use equals if error, same thing, maximum product ID plus 1. There's an error. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we have the next. So that's going to help us because when we add new customers, new suppliers, or new product, we need to assign that brand new ID. So we need to know what the next one available is. Okay, very good. Saving our work. Now what we want to do is I'm going to add some named ranges. Remember, I've got a product name here. So I'm going to go to, let's say, D108, and then I'm going to go all the way up and I'm going to add here some data validation. So here, data validation here, I'm going to make it a list value, and I want it based on the product name. If we're not sure, we remember, we can use F3 is going to tell us what it is. So F3 will do that. We can look up product name, clicking OK. And we want an error alert, so that's going to look good. Okay, so that's a drop-down data validation list for the product ID. So when I select the product, now we can see that we can select the product. Of course, we want to automate the description, and we'll be getting to that soon. Okay, so great. So we can see how that's going to work out just fine. Everything looks good on our order. All right, now we're ready to add in some of our customer information. Again, when we're going to be doing this, when we run these tabs, what I want to do is I want to hide certain columns and then show certain columns. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide all the way over here, and starting out right around P, column P here, that's okay. We're going to expand this column here. So in column P is where we're going to put that first customer information. So we're going to have up here inside, let's start around right here. I want to copy and paste. So I'm going to go into the customers, and I pretty much want all of this here. So I'm going to copy some data too and some conditional formatting, and that's going to help us. So I'm going to copy this, and back inside our inventory management, right around P6 is where we're going to add that in. So P6, I'm just going to paste it right here. Okay, so here's where our customers. Now up here, we're going to add some additional information. Starting also in up here, I want to add in a search customer and a button up here. So that's where we're going to play in as far as from P all the way through X. So we're going to go down here. I'm just going to add some borders. We're going to go into the format cells. F1 will do. We're going to use our color here, our current color. Going to use a thick border all the way around, clicking OK. Okay, so our customer's information is going to be here. Now don't worry about this background because that's all going to change. So the idea is this. Basically what we want to do is I want to have a search customer. So here we're going to have search customer. Just one customer that we'll be searching for. And then inside here, we're going to have, this is going to be white. So I'm going to add this to white. This is going to be a color, putting some borders around here. So we're going to format those cells again, once again, going in, adding left, lower, and the right. And then of course the dotted line in the middle. Okay, so the users are going to be able to search, and then we'll have those customers come here. Now we're going to add some conditional formatting in here, which we're going to get to in a little bit, but I wanted the additional information here. So I like that, just the basic information. We'll have a button here called Add New Customer. So that's going to be important. So why don't we do that right now? We can just use this. So I'm going to copy this and this. And I'm going to copy it. I'm just going to bring it right over here. I'm going to paste it right in here. So that's going to be our add new. We're just going to call this customer instead of order. So customer. Okay, we'll also give it a name, so it's a distinct name for this one, and we'll bring it over here, adding enough spacing here. Okay, so holding that control, make sure space, and then we're going to group that together. And we're simply going to call this add new customer. So add new customer. That's the button that we're going to be using for that. That's the button that will show up when we select the customer. Okay, I like that. That looks very, very good. So now what we want to do is pretty much do the same thing for our next, which is going to be suppliers. Now, where do we want the suppliers to go? We want to leave a certain amount of space, and we're going to put those probably right around AA. So here's where we're going to put the suppliers. Again, you're going to do just the same. I'm going to take the supplier, I'm going to copy this, maybe the first two suppliers, copy this, and then go back into our inventory manager inside AA6, or actually right down here, AA6, pasting that here. So now we have got our suppliers here. And then the same thing. So I'm just going to copy and paste all of this, and I paste it right in here. So instead of this, it's going to be search supplier. And then of course, our button is going to change as well. So this, we're going to be search supplier. And then both of those, we're going to write justify here. And we're going to change this to add new supplier. Okay, very good. Things are moving really fast here now. All right, so continuing on. So we're going to size that button accordingly. And we're going to make sure this icon is 0.2 all the way around. That's the way we want it. If you see that it changes, all you need to do is just make sure that we're not locking the aspect ratio so that we can change them both at the same time. Of course, when you change the group, if they're grouped as a size, of course, it's going to change. Whoa, that's not what we want. 0.2, not 2. Okay, very good. So we've got our supplier button here ready to go. So we're going to change the name of this. We need not this to be add new. We're going to change it to supplier, make things easy for us and consistent. So it's going to change to supplier. And as you can imagine, we are going to do almost exactly the same for products. Products also important. So there's going to be some consistency with what we're doing. Again, so we're going into the products here. Inside the product sheet, I'm going to scroll all the way up. I'm going to copy that and along with the first row. So I'm going to copy that, going back into our inventory management, and then we're going to slide over here to right around, let's say AL, and I'm going to paste that directly in here. Now we've got our suppliers. Again, copying this here, we're going to update that, and then pasting that right here. So we're going to search product here. This is not going to be supplier, but product, where we're going to search for that, and then we can add that in. Now what we want to do is we also want to make sure that we have the name of the button here. So it's not going to be obviously add new. It's not going to be supplier. We're going to stretch that out to make it look just right. And we're going to change this to product. And then of course the button name as well needs to be updated to, instead of add new supplier, it's going to be add new product. Okay, very good. I like that. We'll get everything centered just right. So that's what we're going to do that. Now, so the idea is when we change or edit or clear this list, we want all the products to show up. And of course, everything's going to be showing up directly here as we select it. So those columns are going to be changing. We highlight those and we're going to auto size those columns here. We're going to do the same thing here. And then also, if we don't want this sizing, we can always hold down the control and select all these buttons, and making sure we're going to use also control 1, and want to make sure that inside the properties, and we go down here, move but don't size with cells. We certainly don't want these buttons moving or sizing. Perfect. I just like the way that that is. We do want to add some consistency to the borders here. So we're going to do the control all the way and make sure that we have our borders that are consistent. That blue border should go all the way around. Adding that consistency is very important in these applications. And we can also put in some black borders or blue borders or however we want inside there. So we'll go ahead and change this. And then I'm going to highlight all 3 of those. And we're going to add a consistent inside border, going to be that blue. So formatting those cells. We want that consistent using that line inside borders here. and we can set the top here to that blue. Okay, that's looking really good. Clicking OK, they're all the same. I'm going to save it. Now we're just about ready to create and make those menus active, right? So when we want to select on those menus, not only do I want to change, but I want to change the look and the color of these menus as well, meaning that that selected menu, the color is going to change to a darker color because I want to differentiate between the other menus and the selected. All right, so let's go in. We're going to go into VBA and we're going to make that happen so we can start to work with whatever selected tab we have. Now, since this is a bit longer training, I've already created some of the macros that are going to help us. So let's go ahead and take a look inside the VBA. Developer, Alt F11 is the shortcut, Visual Basic, and we're going to take a look at some of those. So we've got, again, this is our sample one. That's what we've been working on. I've got that handy on the other screen. This is the one we're going to be working on. We've got some code on the invoice manager that I've commented out. I've got customer macros, menu macros, order macros, product macros, and supplier macros. So they're actually relatively customer and then product and supplier are super simple, right? Because it's almost the same thing. Menu macros is what we want to go on. So menu select, this is the macro that's going to run. Now I'm going to go over every step of this code. Sometimes I like to write out code, but this is a little bit longer one so we can speed things up, but don't worry. I'll go over every line of code. So basically the idea is this. I want to use a single macro. So I'm going to hold down the control button. Regardless of whether button or whatever icon I select, I automatically want to use the same macro and have that happen. So I'm going to right click here, I'm going to click assign macro, and that is the macro that we're going to use. I'm going to use this workbook only, and we're going to do menu select. Now what's going to happen when I select it? Well, when I select it, we want the menu number. I want to extract the menu number. The menu number is going to be, in this case, 1, 2, 3. Now we can get that menu number from either the button or the icon. How are we going to do that? Well, if we take a look here, we see it's menu icon. What if I get rid of the first 8 characters? What's it going to leave me with? It's going to leave me with the number. What if I do the same thing here? What if I know the button I've clicked on? I get rid of the first 8 characters. It's going to leave me with the menu number. And so by knowing the menu number, I can easily figure out which one was clicked. And also I can take the text, whatever text is in the button here, and I can figure that out. Now that text, of course, is only in the one that says menu item. So if they click on here, I can't take the text from whatever they clicked on, but I can take it from here. Okay, so understanding that, let's move forward with that. We're going to mention the menu number is long, and I want to know the menu item is long, the menu item. Okay, so the menu number is what I said. We're going to remove the first 8 characters using the replace statement. Now the application caller is the name of the shape that called it. Now the name of the shape could be, in this case, it could be menu icon 1 or it could be menu item 1. So regardless, we're still going to take away getting the first 8 characters and we're going to replacing them. The first 8 characters is this. And that's why the naming is so important. That our icon and our button both start with 8 characters and then the number. That's why it's so important. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those 8 characters and I'm going to replace them with nothing. When I do that, it's going to leave me with the menu number. Then what I want to do is, if you remember, I want to take in the purchases here. I want to, whatever name is the user selected here, I want to take whatever name and I want to put it directly inside B2. So that's the text. So B2 is equal to the shapes. It always starts with the menu item, then the menu number, text frame, text range. So this is going to put in the menu text. And we're going to put that directly in B2 because that's very important for everything we want to do. So that's the menu text. I also want to color the menu shapes. Now I've created a group called IMS group. In fact, I need to do that right now. This one, this group 103, this is our group. Now what do we want to do with that? I want to go inside that group and for very specific items, I want to color them. So I'm going to give that group a name called IMS, IMS being Inventory Management System Group. So GROUP. Did I abbreviate that or not? So, okay, perfect. IMS group. That's the name I want. So inside this group, I want to look for something for the menu item equals 1 to 6. Now, why is this important? Because what I want to do is I want to color the selected one. But if I click on it, how do I know which one's selected? So the first thing I want to do is I want to take all these shapes and I want to give them that standard blue color. How do I know what the color is? If I click on one and I go into the home and I go into the fill here and I go into the more colors and I can see that it's an RGB of 75, 52, 206, 75, 52, 206. So we're going to take all those and we're going to color all those buttons the same. Then I'm going to color only the selected one a little bit darker. So the first thing what we want to do is take all of them, grouping. This is why that number is so important, from 1 to 6, menu item, and the menu item number here, fill that RGB 75, 52, 206. Now I figured out I want a little bit of a darker color. Well, how did I figure out the darker color? Well, all I did was just go into here, and then I just chose a little bit darker color, more colors. And then let's say I chose a darker color, whatever it is. And then I just used these numbers to figure out what that darker color is. So that's exactly what I did to figure out what is that darker color. So we're going to first, this line, all we're doing is coloring them all to blue. Then the next one, I want to color the selected one. How do we know which is the selected one? Because we've already extracted the menu number here. So we know that group items, menu item, and menu number, that's the darker one. So this is a little bit darker color. Okay, great. So we understand that. Now, when we click on something, we can see, whoops, let's fix that here. Dashboard group. Okay, I haven't created that yet. So we got to comment these out because these groups aren't created yet. So we're going to just comment those out. That's fine. And okay, so very good. So let's continue on and then just go ahead and here. And then debug that. Okay, just these shapes haven't been created yet, so no problem. We can't, if we try to run this, if I try to run this without actually selecting something, it's going to happen. Okay, so let's go back into our sales order here. Now we see it's working, sales order. The only thing that group wasn't created, or customers, okay? Now we've got our customers. So what I was explaining to you is see how this color is darker. The selected one is darker here. That's very important. Now, obviously, these buttons, we also need to hide these buttons. So that's what the next step is going to be. So if I take a look, so we just made it through here. Now we have order group. This is when we add a new customer. The only one we don't have is the dashboard group yet. We haven't created that. So I can uncomment these out. We have the order group. Now the order group, remember, if I look in purchases or sales order, and we'll go over exactly, remember I created this order group. That's for the order. I only want to show this. So the idea when you have a tab system here is pretty much you want to hide everything. You want to hide all the shapes, and you want to hide all the columns. Then you only want to show what you need to show. For example, I only want to show columns P through X for customers, and I only want to show the add new customer button. When it's clicked suppliers, I only want to show. So the first step is always to hide everything. And that's what we're going to do right now. Hide all the shapes. The only shape we're not hiding is the dashboard because we haven't created it yet, which we'll get to. And then we're going to group all the shapes into a dashboard. So we're going to hide the order group. We're going to hide the new customer, the new supplier, and the new product. We're hiding all of those shapes that we just created. Then we're going to use select case based on the menu number. I need to know which one they have selected. If the case is 1, remember we've defined it here, menu numbers 1 through 6. So if it's 1, we know it's customers. If it's 2, suppliers, 3, products. So if it's customers, what are we going to do? Oh, I skipped one step. I want to show you this one right here, hiding. This is the one I want to, hiding all the columns. So all the way from B through BD. So taking all the columns from D all the way through BD, we're hiding it. So basically, let's go ahead and unhide these. So I'm starting here all the way from D, and I'm going all the way to BD here, and we're hiding everything. So everything gets hidden first. So everything. So all we do, and then we got, this is going to be for the dashboard. So this area we're going to use for the dashboard. So I'm going to hide everything. Once we hide everything, I want to select it and I want to freeze the pane. So this is kind of a nice feature. Now, the reason we're going to do this, let's say we have a lot of customers, right? So I want to be able to scroll the customers. So you see how what we're going to do is I'm going to select row 9 and then we're going to freeze the panes, except for the dashboard. We don't need that. So that is going to automatically, so that as we scroll up, you see the customer list stays fixed. And that's kind of a nice feature. To do that, all we need to do is select row 9 or any A9 and entire row select, and then freeze the panes, Now that's exactly the same thing if we were doing here, and we go into view here, and we go into freeze panes and we unfreeze, or we freeze panes and we freeze panes. So it's the same exact thing, except we're doing it through VBA. Okay, so now that we understand that, then we're going to hide all shapes. I skipped this before. So we're going to hide all shapes. Cases. So for our first customer, we're simply unhiding the columns P through X for the customer. We are going to show the new customer button. Okay, cases 2, we're simply unhiding columns AA through AI, and we're showing the add new supplier button. For the products, we are going to show, again, unhide columns and show that. Okay, so for sales orders, we need to do a few things. If I click on purchases or sales orders, this is case 4 and this is 5, right? So for either one, purchases, if we take a look at purchases, we see purchases takes care of D through, let's say, M, right? Or N, I believe, D through N, right? So D through N is all for purchases, but it's also the same for sales orders. Remember, we use the same one for purchases and sales. So this case is going to be cases 4 or 5, meaning sales and purchases or purchases. D through N, we're going to unhide. The order group is that we're going to show those shapes, display those. Also, I want to set some validation. If I take a look inside here, supplier, we want a list of suppliers, right? Excuse me, a list of sales orders. Oh, we just have to fix something. So this should be customers, right? Notice it's sales order. So we got to update this to sales order. That's very important. So sales order, never mind the spaces in front of that. Okay, so we're just going to update these. Remember, it's going to be sales order. So I got to update that. If it's a sales order, not customers, that makes more sense. Customers. Perfect. I'll just update that. Purchases, this looks good. And this should be sales order. Okay, so in that case, what we want to do is we want to make sure that as the customer has been selected and it's a sales order. And we also want to make sure that this is set to customers. Customer sales order. Okay, purchase price, sales price when we have a sales order. Purchases is purchase price. That looks good. So the idea is this. When I select purchases, I want that supplier to be displayed. I want a drop-down list of suppliers. When a sales order is selected, I want a drop-down list of customers. So this drop-down list, this data validation must change based on the type of order. So if I click on data validation, you see it's customer name right here based on the customer names. However, if it's purchases and I go back into the data validation, we see that it has been changed to supplier name. So this cell, E5, the data validation drop-down list is going to change based on whether it's purchases or sales orders because we're using the same cell. Okay, so to do that, what I want to do is I want to make sure that we're always going to delete that validation. That's very important. Regardless, we want to delete the validation. So to do that, if it's 4 or 5, the first thing we want to do is delete the validation. Then we're going to select E5 just to make sure that nothing else is selected, to make sure that there's no shape. If there's a shape selected, it could create an issue, so we've selected it. If the menu item is 4, we know it's a purchase. We need to create data validation for that called supplier name. That's the named range that we've used. However, if it's a sales order, we know we're going to add the customer name. The data validation is going to be the customer name. Okay, so basically that's how we add this dynamic data validation based on whether it is a supplier or whether it is a customer here. Okay, very good. So we have that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run a macro called order add new, and basically that just clears it up. We're going to tie to this button here. Okay, what if it's a dashboard? If it's a dashboard, we are going to, again, show certain columns called AW through BD. The dashboard group, which isn't available just yet, is going to be displayed. We're going to refresh all data. We're going to be using one pivot table, and we're going to active windows. We're going to unfreeze the panes, right? I don't want, for the dashboard, I don't want to be able to have that frozen, okay? All right, so that is all. We're going to select R4, just select something else. So that is all the code we need to do to change this. So that's going to be whether they select on an icon or whether they select on a button, it's automatically going to change. Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and focus on the customers. We're going to start here. I want to update some conditional formatting in here, and I want to show you we're going to use actually 4 different conditional formatting rules. Then what we need to do is just copy that rule to suppliers and products, and it's going to be almost the same. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a conditional formatting here already. I just need to update that. So I'm going to go into the conditional formatting. I'm going to manage the rules. Just one format. So what we want to do is I want to edit the rules. Starting A9, that looks good. So we're going to have, instead of A9, I'm going to use P9. P9 is going to be that first. So we're going to change that. We just copied it over. And for the even rows. So what do I want to do? I want to add that color. We'll do the fill. I'll do this fill color. That's fine. Border here, I think that looks good. We'll do the color here. I'll do the dotted line on the left, the bottom, and the right side. And clicking OK. Okay, that's going to be for odd rows. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to click OK. And we're going to add another rule. Let's apply, where are we going to apply that to? We're going to apply that to all the way down to a larger row. Let's say 9999. Okay, and click apply. All right, next up, a brand new rule. I'm going to use a formula. I'm going to paste that in here. This is going to be for odd rows. So in odd rows, I'm going to format that. we're going to use the border is going to be relatively the same as it was. Of course, we're going to use that color that we're consistent, using the dotted line again on the left, the bottom, and the right. This time, we're going to give it a fill of the white color. So that's going to be what we're going to be using for those odd rows. Clicking OK. All right, so clicking apply. Okay, so now that looks good. Now I want to do two other rules. The one is going to be for the selected row. I'm going to do applies to. Let's copy the applies to make sure it applies to the same range. Apply that. Okay, so a new rule. Now this is going to be based on the selected row. Now that selected custom row is going to be based on B10. So that's going to equal row. And I want to format that very similar to what we've been using, the fill effects here, using those recent colors here, and then we could use this color right here. Okay, so I like that. That looks really good. And what I want to do now is I want to go to the font, bold, and then make sure that that's white. And then click OK, and then click OK. Now the applies to is also going to be the same. We're going to apply that to the same range. Now I want to do one more rule. When I create a brand new record, I want that to differentiate, to look very different. How are we going to know if it's a new record? Well, what I'm going to do is look in column X. I'm going to put an N on that row, an N. Okay, so let's do this. Let's try this. Let's say this is going to be our brand new. I'm going to put an N here. Now this N is going to be hidden eventually, so you won't see that. But if there's an N here, I want to distinctly color this row. So let's go back into the conditional formatting, right? And then we're going to manage rules, and I'm going to create a brand new rule. I'm going to copy this because the applies to is going to be the same. I'm going to do a new rule, and I'm going to use a formula. And it's going to be based on a certain row. So it's going to be based on, we're going to do it on X. Okay, so actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to just update this. So X, we're going to get rid of that row. We don't need that. Let's clear that out. So X9 is going to be equal to N. Of course, it's going to be every row. So we're going to get rid of that equals, and then we'll just use a capital N. Okay, and then we're going to get rid of the row. We really don't need that. And then I want to give it a very distinct format. So what kind of format is it? We're going to give it a font. I want it bold and I want it blue. And then what I want to fill, I want it white, and I want the borders, and I want it clear all the way around. So this border here going to be all the way around that blue border. Again, very distinct. Okay, clicking OK and clicking OK. Okay, so now, and let's just do the applies to. We're going to update that applies to, making sure that it applies to all the fields. Going to the home, and then conditional formatting manage rules. We want to make sure that that N applies to everything that it did. Okay. Perfect. I like that. So now when we change this to N, it's going to be very distinct. Okay, that's exactly what I like. Okay, the only other thing is I want to just make a quick update. I'm going to do this update for the customer, supplier, and product because I really don't want to show the rows there. Okay, that looks a little adjustment. So the idea is this. When we have a new record, I'm going to put an N here, and then I'm going to put a little checkbox here. And then I'm going to automate this so that way it looks very, very different, that you can see that we automatically added the new records there. And so that's going to just going to center that up. Okay, so that's what I want. I want it. So when it's not a new record, it's going to go back to the normal way it looks. Okay, that's going to be really helpful. Now all we need to do is just go to the suppliers and products and make those two updates as well. So to do that, we've got all four. Let's double check. We've got all four conditional formats based now on that. So and then all we need to do is just simply copy that to that. So we're going to make sure that it goes through W, which is I've updated it. Everything's perfect on there. So all we want to do now is just copy this and then go to suppliers, and I'm just going to paste it right in here. Now when we paste conditional formats, we need to be careful that we are automatically going to add more, so we need to update those accordingly. So we're going to go into home, conditional formatting, and we're going to manage rules. So see, we have more rules than what we want. So I'm going to remove this rule. Okay, perfect. So we got 4 rules. Of course, the applies to needs to be updated. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in here in any one of them. I'm going to select everything that we want to apply. And we're just going to change this to the large row, 999. That's sufficient. We're going to copy this, and we're just going to paste it up to each one of these. And we're going to make the adjustments accordingly. So instead of this is not going to be X9, right? We're going to use AI. So this is going to be column AI. That's where we want that new N to show up for that. Clicking OK. Now also B10, of course, our selected row is not in for suppliers. It's in B12. So we need to update this to 12. Clicking OK. Now also it's not P9, now it's AA. So we're going to edit this rule. We're going to change that to AA. And we're going to do that both for the odd and now for the even. So that's all we need to do. So when we're updating it, it's very easy when we can copy and paste. Okay, clicking OK. All right, so I like that. Now when we add an N in here, we need to change the applies to here to make sure that it doesn't come over that cell. Manage the rules and make sure that we've got everything consistent. Okay, we have one extra rule we don't need there, so we can delete that. Clicking OK. Okay, so now if we were to add an N in here, we want the same information to apply. That's perfect, capital N. So we can see that for new records, it's also going to be available there. Perfect. I really like the way that that looks. Now we have our conditional formatting. And if I want to know the selected supplier row and I change this to, let's put in this 10, we want to make sure that that's automatically colored. Okay, very, very good. So when I select it, we can see that it's highlighted properly. All right, now all we need to do is just copy this and go into the products and then paste the same one and paste that right here. Again, updating the conditional formatting. AT is where we're going to use that. So I'm going to use conditional formatting, manage the rules. We've got one extra rule that we don't need. We can remove that. We want to make sure that the applies to covers. This time it's going to be selecting on any there. Going to go in there all the way through AS. And then we're going to do a large row. So this one's going to go AL through AS. The applies to must be copied and pasted to all of the rules for our products here, putting that all in. Now we're going to make the updates. The rule, this one's going to be AT is where we're going to put in that N. So that's going to be the last one. So that's going to be AT9. Okay, clicking OK. We're going to update the other rules. This one's not going to be B12, but it's going to be now B14. B14 is our selected product row. So we're going to change this to a 4, clicking OK. Now what we want to do is also, this is not going to be AA. AL is where our first column of data is here. So that's going to be our product number, clicking OK. And then what we're going to do is we're going to edit the rule and click OK. Okay, very good. AL, perfect. So I like that. So now we have everything applied and we're going to apply it, clicking OK, just to double check to make sure if we have some more data in here, we are going to get our rows. And if I have an N here, we want that colored accordingly for our new rows. I like it. And then we'll just go ahead and center this as we have done the rest. Perfect. So now we've got customers, suppliers, and products. So what I want to do is when I click add new, whether it's add new customer or whether we're adding new suppliers or whether we're adding new products, I want to have a checkbox here so that user can now save what they want to do. But I want to have two checkboxes. When they select a row, I want to also put a delete. So basically they can delete a record, they can update a record, or they can save a record. So how are we going to do that? Well, we are going to use just a little button here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this here and here. I'm going to copy these two. We're going to use that for our save, and I'm going to paste it right here. I'm going to get rid of the text on that. We're going to make this one small, so we don't need any text. And I'm going to make this very, very small. So we're going to use this for both save and update. So 0.2 and 0.2 on that. And also the icon here, which is here, we're going to make that a little bit smaller. We don't need this big, so we're going to go in here. We're going to make that 0.18. And 0.18. Okay, so I like that. That looks sufficient for our checkbox. We can center it by selecting them both here and then just centering them both vertically and horizontally. I like that. That looks good. Now all we need to do is just copy this. We shouldn't have centered it. I'm going to copy this because I want to create one more. I'm going to use Control D for duplicate, and I'm going to use this for our, we also want to make sure that we have a delete, so we can delete any specific row if we want to. Control C and then Control V out of here, making this icon the same size. They're going into 0.18 here, making it a little bit smaller and putting that over here. Okay, I like that. Let's a little bit big so we can put 0.16. Okay, so again, we're going to center both of those and we'll make them a single group. So I'm going to, actually we just group each them individually, and then I'm going to center this. So we're going to give those specific names that we're going to call out when we want to. What are those names going to be? We're going to call this group Save Item Button and Delete Item Button. So we want to make sure that they're grouped. And this one, again, we have to make sure that they're grouped. Okay, good. So this one's going to be called Save Item Button. Now I'm going to use the same button for whether they're suppliers, customers, or products, but we can run different macros and do that. This one is going to be called Delete Item Button. Okay, very good. Now, when do we want these shapes to show up? Well, basically, I want them to show up at certain times. If I'm into, I want to go back into our sales order, and I'm going to move those around. Debug that. We don't need that. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to bring these over here, and for now, and we've given them names, but I want them to appear. When do I want them to appear? I want them to appear when a user selects on a record, whether it's suppliers, products, or customers, and I want both the check and the delete. However, when they click add new, I only want the check marked. So basically, we need to hide these items and only show them when we select on a specific record, whether it's customers, suppliers, or products. So that is all going to happen through a selection change event. Selection change event is when we want it to happen. So let's get in there. Now I've commented the code out, but I'm going to uncomment it out. Okay, this is our sample, but this is the one we're working on here. Right inside the inventory management, I'm going to do Control A, and I'm going to uncomment this out. And we're going to go through some of the code here. Okay, so worksheet change event, we're not going to get into that. We're going to focus just yet. Selection change event. Now, the first thing what I want to do, if the target count large, if the user has selected more than one cell, we're going to exit the sub out. All right, if the shape save item button, if it's visible, I want to hide it, right? I don't want this particular save item button. I only want it displayed when the user makes a selection on a very specific cell. So the first thing we want to do is hide both of them. And we could do that through here. If it's visible, then hide it using MSO false. On the customer selection, when a user selects on a customer, if they make a selection on anywhere from P all the way through W, we want to make sure that P has a value. If P has a value, then do something. First of all, take whatever the row that they've selected and put it in B10, right? We want that row to come into B10. That's the select row. So when I make a selection here, I want the row that they've selected. That's going to trigger the conditional formatting. And you saw those buttons line up. How did that happen? Well, let's take a quick look inside there. With the save item button, I want that to appear. Where do I want it to appear? I want it to appear in column X, right? Let's scroll up, column X. I want it to appear right in column X, and I want it to appear on the top row of whatever the row that they've selected. So again, we're putting it in column X on the left side, and I'm moving it over slightly to the right using 1 pixel. I'm also putting it on the top position, and I'm making sure that it's visible. So we're going to position that save item based on the selected row. However, I don't want the delete button, right? If they're adding a brand new record, when I click add new, what's going to happen? A macro is going to put an N right here. If there's an N, and I want to make sure that the current row doesn't have an N. If the current row has an N, I only want to put the save button and not the delete, right? Because this is a new record, theoretically. The user's entering it. There's nothing to delete. They can only save it, right? So N means brand new. We only put an N. If it's not new, we're going to put the database row, or you saw the row before. We're going to put that in. I'm going to hide that. We don't need that inside here. I'll show you that in a little bit. Don't worry about that. So if X and the target row does not equal N, only show the delete existing records, right? If it's a new record, we do not want to show. There's nothing to delete. Okay, so the delete item button would show up, but it's going to show up a little bit more farther to the right. We don't want them on top of each other. We want that delete button a little farther to the right. So that's all we're going to display that. So that's all we need to do, right? So we're just simply displaying the checkbox. Okay, very, very good. So when it's selected, we want to show it. All right, perfect. I like the way that looks. So that's all that we need to have. Now, what about for suppliers? I pretty much want the same thing. Whoops, I forgot one thing. Let's go back into the customers. What did I forget? Well, what did I forget? I forget to size, move, but don't size. Look how they got all stretched out. So when this happens, why does it happen? Because we forgot one step. So it's good. Sometimes it's good when you see these, right? So Control 1. How did it get all stretched out like that? Well, if we go into the picture format, we can see instead of 0.2, it's like it should be about 0.4, the entire group. So that's that's just the delete. Basically, what we need to make sure is that when we're showing these buttons, we need to make sure that both of them, and the other one, where'd the other one go? It's not gone. Well, how do we find it? Well, if that happens to you, it's here, save item, but the problem is it got reduced so much we can't see it. So all we need to do, notice the width is 0. That's what happens when we forget a step. No problem. Easy to fix, but in case you run into this problem, that's what's going to happen. So 0.2, picture format, 0.2. So we want to make sure that we're displaying that. All we need to do is just select on our items and making sure that inside the properties, we've always said move, but don't size or so they don't get stretched out. So that's important. We don't want to miss that step like I did. Okay, great. So how do we get it to show up for suppliers? Well, that's going to also be on the selection change event, right? So if we go back inside here under our inventory manager here, that's going to be, this was on customer selection, but what about on supplier selection? It's going to be exactly the same, except we're changing the range and we're displaying it in column AI. So everything is the same except for the columns. Same thing with product selection. If we make a selection change, On the products, we also want the same two buttons to show up, except they're going to be showing up in column AT. So it's very, very much the same. That's just a different value. So they're going to be showing up in column AT for products. So that's all we have to do to get those buttons to show up inside our cells right here where we want them based on whether it's a supplier, product, or customer. Okay, very good. Glad we got to show that to you. What about when we add a brand new product or add a brand new customer? What do we want to happen? Well, what I want to happen is this. When I click Add New Customer, I want to determine the next customer ID. So what is the next customer ID? It is 12. So I'm going to place that. I want to put that right here. But before we do that, let's make sure, let's see if we can get all the customers to load. I want all the customers. So basically, I want to take all the customers from here and I want to load them up. And I want to put them directly inside this list right here. And I want to put the row numbers located in column X, but I want them hidden, okay? So how do we do that? Well, I also want to base it. What if the user has put in something like here? What if they've added some additional data here, search it? I also want to include that. So let's go into the customers. And let's go into a criteria. We need to run an advanced filter. Now that advanced filter is going to be based on whatever the user has entered. If they've entered some information in R4, I want to show the asterisk before, it means anything before, plus whatever's in R4 and another asterisk. And basically that means anything that begins or ends with whatever they've put in. Now R4, if we go back in, we see that R4 is here. So when they search for, let's just say they search for bade or BE, we want to make sure that all the records that contain BE will show up. We can use an advanced filter for that. We want the rows to go, all the rows that contain that, and to go right here. These are the results that were going to happen. We want those results to come all the way back inside our inventory management. Now, how is that going to happen? Well, it's going to happen when we make a change to R4. That's called a change event. When the user makes a change, we want something to happen. Let's take a look all the way up here under the worksheet change event, still on the inventory manager here. When the user makes a change to R4, we want something to happen. We're going to run a macro called customer refresh list, customer refresh list. That is the macro that's going to run that advanced filter. It's going to run any information the user has entered in customer name. We're going to put that results here. If they haven't put anything, all the results are going to show up here. And we're going to bring that information directly inside these cells here. The first thing we want to do is want to clear everything out, all the way from P9 all the way through X and down. So this particular macro, if we want to know where this macro is located, we just right click and we go to definition. And we see it's going to take us inside the customer macros. The first macro that we're going to run is called customer refresh list. Customer row is long, the selected row, the last row, and the last results row. These are going to help us for the macros within this module. As I mentioned, the first thing we want to do is clear out any data. I want to clear out that selected row, that customer selected rows in B10. And I want to clear out all the data, including whatever's inside column X. So we're going to go all the way from P9 through X, clearing out the contents. We're then going to run an advanced filter on our customer sheet. So we're going to run that right here on our customer sheet, all the way from our headers from A3 all the way through I. Our criteria is going to be M2 through M3. And our results are going to come directly inside P2 all the way through X2. So that's what we're going to do right here. Our advanced filter, A3 through I, in the last row, we're going to determine what that last row based on column A. If it's less than 4, that means we have no data. The criteria, M2 through M3. And then we're going to have the copy to range, P2 through X. So that's all of the data there. We're going to determine the last results row. So I need to know how many results are there. What's the last row? We're going to base on column P. The last row is 13 in this case. Let us know how much data we're going to be bringing over. If for some reason the last results row is less than 3, we're going to exit the sub out. However, we're going to bring all the data over, P9 through X plus 6. Why is it plus 6? If we take a look inside our inventory manager, our first row of data starts on row 9. Our results row inside our customers is going to show up directly here in row 3. So we need, there's a 6-row differential. So we need to add on that. So we need to add 6. And then we're going to bring it over. And then we're going to select our row. And then we're going to set the active scroll window to 9, setting that scroll. And so that means even if we double click here and use tab, it's going to automatically load those customers up. And all we need to do is just center this here to make them look nice. Okay, so we see that the rows are over. I don't really want to see these rows, right? So how do we get those rows to hide? Well, the best way to do that is just to go all the way down here and set a very specific format. Now, I'm not going to hide them yet because I want to show you one more thing, but we'll show you. We're going to use some semicolons in the custom format to hide them. But I do want to show you one more feature before we add that, and that's the new row. Okay, so basically all we're going to do is duplicate exactly that for the suppliers. If we take a look inside the suppliers, the change, I just wanted to show you one thing, so show you that the filter does work. So let's just put in JA here, and we want to see that the filters do work here. So we see all the names that contain JA have showed up. And we see that inside our customers, now it's showing our criteria is JA with the asterisk before and after, the wildcards before and after. Only those results with JA will show up, and that's the way we're going to get that. If we were to clear it out, let's scroll up and down. That's a freeze pane issue. You see that? Look, if we unfreeze the panes, everything is still there. Before you're clicked on that, it's going to look at that refresh. It's kind of weird, huh? It has to do with freeze panes. I've noticed that before. I think you can use application screen updating equals true. That would probably fix that. So if that happens again, I'll add that in the code. So what do we have here? So if we want to clear it out, I could add a clear button. Maybe for our Patreon members, you might want to clear it out. So I think we really need a clear button here to clear the filter. And that will just reset the list. Suppliers, same exact thing. It's going to get much easier. Load supplier. So if I type in ABC, again, we always want the load, only ABC. If I hit delete, all of those suppliers are going to come up. Very, very similar. We can move a little faster because this is going to be very, very similar. Inside the invoice manager, any change to AC4, we're going to run supplier refresh. Anything through AN, we're going to run product refresh. And it's exactly the same thing. If I look in suppliers, we have the same criteria, except this is based on AC4 and the results. And the products, again, also M2. Notice the consistency with the cells and the results, also the results coming through P. So we don't need to go over duplicate code, and then the information is going to come here. Okay, so that's it. So it's relatively simple here. Suppliers, products, and again, all we need to do inside of our products, if we want to search for a product, delete will clear that and will display all the products. If we want to show just products that contain AR, it'll do that, just products that contain AR, clearing the list. Very cool. So we kind of see how we do that. But what if we want to add a new product supplier or a new customer? How do we do that? Or what if we want to update an existing one? Well, we've got some additional code. So let's take a look back inside the customers, and we see we have customer add new, customer save update, and customer delete. Let's go in order. How do we do customer add new? Well, if we remember correctly, we're going to use the same button, this check mark. We're going to use the same button for suppliers, products, or customers. So that means, but I've got separate macros. I've got customer add new. I've got inside the products, I've got product add new. And inside the supplier, I've got supplier add new, right? So I've got 3 different macros, but I've got one button. How do I run that 3 different macros on one button? Well, a third macro will help us do that. So inside the menu, I believe I put it in menu here, going to be called, let's see, save item, delete item, not here. Perfect. So save item, that's the one I wanted to show you. Save item is the check. Now we're going to use this to save or update. So this save item is what we're going to be assigning to the checkbox. All we need to do is just determine what is the item type located in B2. The item type should be menu type, right? Shouldn't it be? I don't know. I like that better. I'm going to do item type. I use Control F. I'm going to change that. I think it should be menu type. So change it to menu type. Okay, so now that we understand, I want to know what menu type replaced. All item type would work, but that's okay. So menu type is going to be based on B2. If the menu type is customers, we're going to run the macro customer save update. If the menu type is suppliers, so on and so forth. So you kind of get the idea. So we're using select case based on whatever's in B2 to run the associated macro. And so it is this macro that must be assigned to that button that we've added. So we're going to right click here. And then I'm just going to hit N, and then I'm going to paste that in here called save item. And that way, if I decide I'm going to change Betty White to Betty White Smith, maybe she got married at her old age, and I want to update that, right? So I'm just going to put the check mark, and that's going to automatically update that. So let's say if I refilter her name and it just shows it, so we see that her updated name automatically got saved. So how are we going to do that? So let's clear that out. So we see that it got saved. So how are we going to do that? What if I want to create a new one? I'm going to run. So this is the macro customer save update that just got ran. How do we know that? Because the menu type was customers and it ran this macro. So going back inside our customer macros, customer save update. That's the one I want to go to. We're going to focus on the inventory manager. I want to know the selected row of that customer. That's very important. B10 holds that. I want to know what row we're on. B10 holds that selected row. Notice the row changes because that's the one we're going to be saving. How do we save it? Well, we can simply just get that selected row. If it's 0, we can exit the sub out. I want to know, is it a new record or not? When I click add new, it's going to put a new N right here. So if it's N, that means that we know no database row has been assigned to it. However, the database rows, see these rows, they come directly over from here. They come over, so I know what row it's on. So I know that Betty White is saved on row 4. That's why it's so important to put the row inside our original data, because Betty White, we know what row. So now it says Betty White Smith because we know we've updated. I know what row. So to do that, it's very important that we understand the row. And of course, that can be hidden, and this will be hidden. And I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But so I need to differentiate. If it's N, no row has been assigned. We need to extract the first row, get the first available row, would be 15 to put that. So how are we going to do that? Well, the first thing what I want to do is I want to make sure that get that first available customer row. For new records, the first available row inside the customers, A999 and XLF plus row. That's the first available row. Once I know that first available row, I also want to get the database row. What is the set customer? I'm going to set that. I'm going to place that database row directly inside X. So that database row, so I know. So instead of it N, it's not going to be an N anymore. We're going to change it to the actual database row, putting that in X. Then also what I want to do is inside the customers, only for new records, I want to take the row and put the row right here. That's only for new records. We only need to do that once. Okay, next up, what I want to do, I want to make sure that the ID that is displayed, but we can do that ID automatically with all the records. What if it's an existing customer? So existing customers, how do we know? Because it's not an N in control. Existing customers already have a customer row associated in column X. So now we know it's a customer. So now we have all the information inside here, our inventory manager. So any changes, so the rest is easy. All I need to do is just simply copy and paste whatever is here and place it directly inside here, all the way here up until column H. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So going to use A and the customer all the way through H in the customer row. This is inside our customer sheet, is equal to whatever's in P and the selected row through W. So it's simply equal to whatever's in P all the way through W. And so all I need to do is just make a change here. If I change this to street, and then just click the checkbox, and then automatically it's going to be saved. And so we see that John James inside the customer is now changed to street. So it's very, very easy to make updates just like that, whether it's a new. So we've gone over how to save it, but what if I want to add a brand new customer? Well, I've got a button here and I've already got a macro associated with this. So we're going to click assign macro and I'm going to do customer add new. Now, what do we want when this happens? Well, when this happens is when I click here, I want to take the next available customer ID, and that's going to be located in B11. So that next customer is 12. I want to put a 12 right here. And I also want to put an N right here. I'm going to find the first available row. So it's going to do something like this, and it's going to do something like this here. So that's how we do it. So then when we select on that, we see that we only have the check. That's exactly what we want inside the macro. I'm going to refresh that list. So let's take a look inside that customer new. It's very easy, called customer add new. So first of all, we're going to refresh the customer list, just what I did. So when I click add new, it's going to refresh that customer list. I also wanted to scroll. What if it's a really, really long list? What if we have 50? We don't want to scroll all the way down. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll close to that so we can see that. Not all the way. I don't want necessarily the last row, but I want to see a little bit of the data. So it's kind of a nice feature. So see how it did that automatically. So the first thing, we're going to run the macro refresh list, which you already saw. The selected row is going to be based on the first available row, which is P999 plus 1. That's the selected customer row. Inside B10 is that selected row. We want to know what selected row. B10 is going to take that on. We're going to put that. So whatever the row has been selected, we're going to put that directly inside B10, that brand new row. 20, you see it goes here. Okay, so next up, what I want to do is I want to put the N inside column X and whatever the selected row is. I also want to set the next customer ID. That next customer ID is going to go directly in column P. And you see how conditional formatting makes it get white with that blue border. And also we see that we have that all white. So that's only for those that contain the N. Okay, Q, I'm simply going to select it right when I click add new. I want to make sure it's selected here. So I want to select so that you can start typing in the name. And then all I want to do is active window scroll P and X left -3. And basically that's going to go the last available row, the last row of the value, -3, which will get us right about here. 1, 2, 3 plus the selected row. That's going to be it. So now we can put in any name. So we can put in Fred Flintstone, Fred's cousin. Okay, and I don't need to put in the rest and just check, and it's automatically going to be added here. So now we look in the customers and we see Fred Flintstone has been added. So it's a great way and quick way to do it. Now, we've done exactly the same on suppliers. So if I click add new supplier, I'm going to right click this. We need to assign the macro, and that's going to be supplier add new. Clicking here. And so when we click here, we want to make sure that we're going to add that new supplier here, and we've added it right here. Okay, very cool. What about products? If I want to add a product, I'm going to do the same thing here. Right click, assign the macro. This training is going to be long. Products, add new. If you do like these workbooks and you want to support this training, and a great way to do that is with the 250 workbook templates. I get 250 of my best templates all in a single zip file. Along with that, I've got each one of them contains PDF codebooks, so you can fully understand and look over all of the code. I've wrapped it all up in a code library, so you've got a whole list of those workbooks, a single click to open the workbook, a single click to view the training. It is one of the best learning tools out there for developing applications in Excel. No reason to start your own when you can start with my templates to create any application you want to. That's the 250 workbook zip pack. I'll include the link down below. That would be great if you could pick it up. Okay, continuing on. So add a new product. We want to add a new product. We've already got that here. Very, very simple. So customers, suppliers, products, that's pretty much it. Now, it is exactly the same. We don't necessarily need to go over all of the training. In other words, we don't need to go over product macros because it's add new, product refresh list, save and update. The only thing I want to do is cover delete. What if I want to delete? Let's go back to customers. Deleting is going to be there. So we haven't assigned this macro yet. So I'm going to go into the assign macro and I want to delete a record. So we're going to scroll down here called delete item, clicking OK. Now, if we take a look, where is that located? That particular macro is located inside our menu macros and delete item. Again, we're going to use select case based on if it's customers, we're going to run this macro. If it's suppliers, we're going to run this, and product. So each one has its own delete, relatively simple. How do we know? If it's a delete, all I want to do is if I want to delete Fred Flintstone, I'm going to click here. Are you sure you want to delete this customer? If I say no, nothing's going to happen. If I say yes, it's going to delete that customer, refresh the list, and it's no longer there. How does that happen? Going inside the customer macros, delete customer. We're going to get this. Are you sure you want to delete this customer? You just saw this. If it's no, we're going to exit the sub out. The selected row is going to be whatever's in B10. If it's 0, we're going to exit the sub. If the invoice, if it's new, what if it's a brand new? It should never, the delete button shouldn't come up. But if it does, we're simply going to skip deleting any row, meaning it's N. There's no database that's associated with this, although this should never happen. Why shouldn't it happen? Because it shouldn't happen because when I select, there's no delete button on this. So it shouldn't happen, right? So the delete only appears for the existing ones, not the new ones, which is kind of a nice feature. But if it is, then we're just going to go to not saved. We're going to skip that and go down to here. However, if it is, we're going to extract the customer row based on column X, and we're going to delete the entire row in the customers. Then we're simply going to run the macro to refresh the list. And that's all you need on how to delete a macro. All right, very, very cool. So that's the delete. It's exactly the same for the suppliers and products. Let's get to purchases and sales orders. I've got some really cool things. The first thing what I want to do is add a new order. So that's a macro. So let's click this and then hold the control. I want to assign a macro to this, and it's going to be called order add new. So I'm going to go into assign macro. We're going to scroll down to order and click here, add new. We might as well assign the rest of them. So we're going to right click here and here, go down to N here. You can use enter shortcut, order, print here for that one. And then this one's going to be called order, save and update. So I'm going to right click here, assign the macro, order, save, update. And then lastly, we're going to be able to delete the order holding down the control and then order, and this one is going to be delete. Okay, so we've assigned all the macros to the buttons. Now what happens when we click new? I want to clear all the contents and I want to set the current date there. So how are we going to do that? Well, that's with the macro called order add new. So inside the macros, order add new is the first one that we're going to go over. Now, the nice thing about it is that this same macro is going to be used for whether we're on purchases or sales. So that's going to be really great. Okay, so first, when we create an add new, I'm just going to clear out a bunch of cells. We're clearing out all the cells that are associated with that, including the search, including the supplier or the customer. We're going to clear out all the products description, however, not the total, because that's going to be a formula. What kind of formula should we add? Well, I want to make sure that there's going to be a value in both the quantity and the purchase. So let's do that. Equals if and the quantity does not equal empty. And we also want to make sure that our purchase price or sales price does not equal empty. So we're going to G9 does not equal empty. Okay, so in that case, what do we want to do? I want to multiply the quantity times the purchase price. Okay, so that's it. But what if it is empty? If it is empty, all we're going to do is just going to put that. Couldn't put double quotes. Okay, and then end parentheses. Okay, so that's the formula that I want. Now I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it all the way down. So I'm going to copy this, and we're going to go, let's say we're going to go to H108. That's going to allow enough rows for that. And then I'm just going to scroll up here, and then I'm going to paste the formulas here. I'm going to paste in those formulas. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're not going to erase that. So the formulas in here, and that just means as soon as we put a quantity and we put in the purchase price, that we automatically add that. And of course, if we update the quantity, it's all going to be updated. Okay, I like that. Okay, very good. However, what we also want to do is when we're adding that, before we add it, I want to add in a product. So let's go over the add new first thing. So we got to clear out all those rows. We're clearing out, I also, inside column I9, I want to associate the database row that's associated with this. What do I mean by database row? If we see we've got a separate table called order items. Now, this is based on order ID. It was a purchase. This is the product, description, the quantity, and you see the database row. That's row 4, 5, and this goes on item row 9, 10, 11, and 12, meaning here 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I need to know the database row. This is important. It's going to be hidden. It's going to go here, but I also want to make sure to clear out 9. Okay, so we're going to clear that out. And I want to know the next order ID. So that means when I click new order, that next order ID, whatever that next order ID, I want to put it directly inside B4. So that way the purchase order, same thing. If we have a sales order, right, we click add new, I want to make sure it shows sales order 40. So I'm going to put that next. As soon as I put it inside B4, you see this updates automatically. If it's a purchase, it's going to be purchase order number. If it's sales order, it's going to be sales order number. Okay, so that's going to go in there. That's going to trigger that string that's dynamic. Then I want to set the current date in H4. I'm going to select E5. Okay, so that's all we're going to do. So that way when we have a customer, but now when I select a customer or I select a supplier, I want to make sure that the address automates down here. How do I do that? Well, that's going to be on a worksheet change event. E5, but I need to know, is it a customer or is it a supplier? So on a change on E5, so it's a worksheet change. We go back in the inventory manager, we're going to focus on the worksheet change event. So we're going to focus on E5, on customer or supplier name change. If the user makes a change on E5 and E5 is not empty, do the following. We're going to dimension the name row as long. So if B2 equals sales order, if it's a sales order, then we know it's a customer. Otherwise, it's a supplier. What if it's a customer? The name row, we're going to look it up. I want to look up this customer name. And we're going to look it up inside the customer named range. We're going to locate it using the target value is whatever the user has entered. And I want to extract the row. If it's not 0, that means it's been found. We're going to take whatever's in column C of the customers. What's column C? If I look in column C, that is the address. So I'm going to put that, I want to put that address, I want to put it directly inside cell E6. Inside cell E7, what I want to do is I want to take the city, state, and zip, columns D, E, and F, and I want to combine them, separating them by a comma and a space, and put them directly there. And that's the next line of code. E7 is going to take on D, E, and if we scroll over, we see F. So it's going to take on all of that. And it's going to separate it by a comma and a space. So otherwise, what if it's a supplier? The name row, we're going to look up, this time we're looking up in supplier names. I'm going to look it up. I want to know the supplier row. So this is the supplier database row. This would be the customer database row, customer. Okay, so we can extract both of those. As long as that's not 0, we should probably add on air resume next. Oh, I've added it up here and down here. Okay, so on air, this should be go to 0. Go to 0. Okay, and that just means if it's not found, then we can skip it. So, all right, continuing on. So basically all we're going to be doing is the same. The address this time is going to be the supplier address and then the supplier city, state, and zip. So that's all. So how does that happen? So then if we take a look back inside, we're on sales order. So if a customer gets added, that customer address automatically gets added. If we're on purchases and we select a supplier, that supplier address automatically gets added just because it's the change event on there. So we can automate that. Very, very cool. Okay, very cool. I'm glad I got to share that to you. There's some more I want to do. Now, when I select a product here, I want the description automatically and either the purchase price or the sales price. If we're on a purchase order, I want the purchase price. If we're on a sales order, I want the sales price. If we take a look inside our products here, we have both. I have a purchase price and I have a sales price. The purchase price is in column E. The sales price is in column F. So we can take a look at that. And that's going to happen on a change of D, anywhere from D9 all the way to down. So let's take a look at that. And that's going to be up here. On order item change, load details, but not an order load. What does that mean, but not an order load? And that means when I'm loading an order, if I put in an order number and all the products load on that order, that kind of change, I do not want to automate the description, quantity, and price. I only want to automate it when the user manually. So we can differentiate that with using this right here, B3. So B3 is usually false, right? So as long as this is false, it's going to automate. Okay, so it's only going to go true when it loads and back. Okay, so let's take a look at that. If, okay, user makes selection and B3 is false, we want to make sure that we're going to dimension the item database row is long and the selected row is long. The selected equals the target row. So that's a nice spelling. The selected row there. So we want to make sure that we know the selected row. It's going to be the target row. Putting that into a variable, it's a little bit easier. If the target value does not equal empty, we want to do something. If it doesn't equal empty, I want to automate the description, put in the quantity and the purchase or sales price. If it is empty, I want to clear it all out. So if it's not empty, we're going to do the following. I'm going to extract the row. I need to know what item database row. That's the product database row. What row? I'm going to look up the product name and I'm going to determine what row is on. That's important because I need to extract the description. I need to extract either the purchase price or the sales price. So we need to get that row. We can look it up using the product name, find the target values, look in the values, and extract the row. As long as if it's equal to 0, let the user know, please select the correct product from the drop-down list. And we're going to exit the sub. If it's not 0, we can automate that. That means the description from column C is going to go directly inside column E. So column E is going to take that on. And F is going to set that default quantity to 1. Now, but what about our purchase price? I need to know if it's purchases, this is going to be a purchase price. If it's a sales order, it's going to be a sales price. So we need to differentiate that. If B2 equals sales order, then it's a sales, we need to enter the sales price. Sales price is going to come from column F of our products. If it's a purchase, we're going to do the purchase price, and the purchase price is going to come from column E. So again, we're just simply adding the purchase price or the sales price. And that way, when we select a product, the description, the quantity, and the purchase price. However, notice that Arla mild cheddar, right? If we're on a sales order and we select that same Arla mild cheddar, we see that it is the sales price that got added. So the price is going to be dynamic based on the type of order, whether it's a sales order or whether it is a purchase order. Okay, good. So we understand that. Else, what if they've cleared the fields, right? If I have an existing order here or existing item here and they decide to clear the fields, I want to clear the fields out. So I want to remove the description, the quantity, and price. I want to make sure that the total doesn't get cleared out because that's based on a formula. Okay, so that's all we need to do is just clear out E through G. We're going to clear the row out. Okay, great. So we've been on the change events. So for those two change events, great. So we've also been on add new order. But what about load an order? Or save and update. Let's continue on our order macros. So we've been on order add new. But what if I want to save and update, right? So I'm going to enter, let's go ahead and enter purchase. I'll go ahead and add a vendor here. I will add in some products here that we're going to be purchasing. And I also want to make sure to explain to you on the totals. And we're going to update the formulas here. Subtotal, what's that going to be? Well, let's add in the formula. Subtotals is simply going to be the sum of what's in the totals. So the subtotals are going to equal the sum of what? Of everything in this row all the way to, I think we went to 108. Okay, so the subtotal is relatively easy. But what about the tax? Well, the tax is going to be based on two conditions. Here inside, are we charging sales tax on our sales orders, Are we paying sales tax on our purchase orders? And if so, what is the percentage? So we're going to differentiate. We need to know whether. So I've given some names here. This is called purchase tax option, and this is called purchase tax. This is called sales tax option, and this is called sales tax. So I've given some name range to help us in the formula. So equals, if this is equal to purchases, we know we're on a purchase order. Purchases, so we'll do purchase. Okay, purchases, then what are we going to do? I need to do another if statement. If the purchase tax option equals yes, then we need to change. So yes, then what are we going to do? We're simply going to take the subtotal and we're going to multiply it times the tax rate, times the tax rate. So it's going to be the purchase tax rate. Okay, what if it's not? Okay, so what if it's false? Then we're simply going to enter empty. What if it is false? What if this is false? We're going to do, that means it's not purchases, it is a sales order. Again, we're going to run it if sales tax option, this is for sales order, sales tax option equals yes. Then what we're going to do, multiply the subtotal. This time it's going to be by the sales tax amount. Otherwise, if it's not, empty. Okay, that's it. So that's the formula we're going to have. So that's going to add in that tax, that sales tax or purchase tax automatically. And then the total is simply equal to the sum of the two. So we could just add the sum of both the subtotal and the tax accordingly. Okay, great. So now we have our total fields. That's looking really good, saving our work as we do. So we've got our total back. When we save it, so now when I save this, I want to make sure that we save it. I'm going to look in this field here. If this has not been saved, we know these items have not been saved. But what if the purchase order? I know if there's no row associated with this order, that means order 40 has not been saved. So if we look inside here, our orders, we see that the last order created was 39. 40 has not been created. So we need to create a brand new row for that. That's going to be an order, save, and update. So let's go through that macro right now. Okay, so inside this macro, we want to first determine, is it purchases or sales? So I need an order type. An order type is a string variable. Inside this string variable, we need to make sure that we've set it. Why is that important? Because I need to make sure that inside the orders, our second column's order type. I need to place that there. Very, very important so we understand between sales and purchases. Okay, so we're going to set the order type based on whatever's in B2. If it's purchases, I'm going to set the order type to purchases and the name type to supplier. The name type will be important soon. If it's sales, I want the order type as the sale and the name type as customer. Okay. Now what we want to do is I want to determine if B9 is empty. Why is that important? B9 is going to tell us whether it is a customer or supplier row. Remember, I need to save this information. I need to know what row is on that customer supplier. Is it a supplier or is it a customer? And make sure that there's a row associated with that. Okay, if B9 equals empty, please make sure to enter a correct name type. Let the user know a customer or supplier from the drop-down list. I do not want them to be able to save an order without actually entering either a customer or supplier here. So that's ensured that they do. We're going to select E5 and we're going to exit the sub out. Is it a new order or not? How do we know if B5 is blank? We know it is a new order. So if B5 is empty, it is a brand new order. We're going to set the order row to the first available order on the order sheets, the first available row. Again, inside that, we're going to set B4 is of course our brand new order number. We're going to place that in column A of our orders. We want that to show up directly. That first row is going to be that. So this is going to take on 40. Okay, and then I want to place in the type here. I want to put in the name, the date, and the total amount. I'm going to put all that in. That's very important. So that's exactly what we're going to do in the next lines of code. However, if it's an existing order, all we need to do is extract the existing order row directly from B5. So that's existing order database row. Once we have that, we can then place, I did not use data mapping. Some of you see that we use data mapping, but there's only a few fields, so I didn't. B is going to take on the order type. C is going to take on either the customer or the vendor name. The date is going to be in column D, and the total is going to be in column E. That's it. Okay, so that saves all this information, the supplier or the customer, the date, and the total here. The total is going to come from H7, so that's going to take on that. Okay, but what about the items? Now, when I need to loop through all the items. I need to determine the last row. In this case, it's 11. I'm going to look in column I. If I contains a number, I know that it's already been saved. If I is empty, we are going to then add a brand new database, and that's going to be saved in this order items database. Inside this database, we want to know the order ID, the type, the product, the description, quantity, price, total, the row that's associated, that's the item row. That means so that I can place it directly back in row 9, back in row 10, or back in row 11 when we load it up. And the database row, it is that database row that we're going to be placing in column I here. Okay, so what we're going to do is determine that last item row based on column D. If it's less than 9, that means there's no items been saved. If it's greater, then we're going to run a loop. The item row is simply equal to 9 all the way to the last item row. Okay, if, again, we're going to check. Now, this is where I want to check. If I look in column I and I see that it's empty, I know that this line has not been previously saved. So we need to add a brand new database row. If I equals empty, it's a new database item. I need to get the first available database row based on our order items. And I also want to set inside that, in column A, I want to set the order number. In column B, the order type. H is the item row, and I is the row. So what does that mean? That means inside our order items, inside column A, the order ID, B, the order, this is only for new items, and I want to make sure that H is the row that's associated, and B and column I is the database row. We're going to use the formula, and that way if something gets deleted or cleared, that the rest automatically update. Okay, very good. So now that we've done that for those items, for new items, what if it's an existing item? Oh, lastly, I want to take that for new items, and I want to put that database row, and I'll put it directly inside column I. It'll be hidden eventually. Existing, if it's an existing, all we need to do is extract the item database row from column I. That's going to be the existing order items database row. Okay, next up, all we need to do in a single line, just copy and paste all the information all the way from the product description, quantity, and purchase price, and place it directly inside our order items from here, B, C, D, and all the way to the price, okay? And of course, we can place the total in there too. We can put that total inside there. When we bring it back, we don't need to bring the total because the formula will take care of it. So all the way from G through B, that's gonna come directly from columns D through H, and that's exactly D through H, and D through H is gonna go directly into columns C through D. That's it. That's all we need to do is save the items. Okay, great. And then we're just gonna give a message saying order type saved. So that means when we press save and update, it's going to save it. It's going to add those numbers here. Purchase save. If I expand this column, we'll be able to see those numbers. We've got the database row numbers. We know it's been saved. If we look in the orders here, we go all the way down. We see that order number 40 has been saved here. We'll center the numbers there. It's a purchase. We've got the vendor here, supplier, and the date and the total. If I look in the order items, we scroll down to the bottom. We see order number, purchase. We see the items and the totals. Everything is now filled in here. Okay, very good. So we've got all that data just the way we want it. We're now able to save our orders. What about if we want to print an order or delete an order? We can do that as well. So the next one is load. Loading is important, right? When do we load an order? Well, I load an order when I enter the proper order number. We just added 40. If I add a new order, that clears everything out. But I want to load that order back up. How do I do that? Well, if I hit 40, notice that order loads all up. And that's going to happen on a change event. K4 is going to make it where it happens. So if I go to Invoice Manager here, and I go scroll down here to K4, that's going to be the change event. Remember, we're under worksheet change event. And K4 does not equal empty. What I want to do is I want to look. Remember, I have a row that's associated, the search order row. I know that if B8 is not empty, there's a correct row because this is based on whatever order number the user has placed in K4. So the only thing I want to make sure of is if they enter something that is, let's say, a sales order, I think number 2 is a sales order, right? If this is a sales order, notice we're on purchases. Order number entered is a purchase order. Actually, I should say sales order. It's a sales order, not a purchase. Please select on purchase and okay, I got to fix that. So this is a sales order. The idea is to go here and I just got to update the message and just do this here and I'll change that in a minute. So because it's a sales order, notice we're into sales order, right? So number 2 is a sales order. Number 1's a purchase order. So I want to make sure that they've entered a sales order and not a purchase order. If I try to enter 40 here, we know that that's a purchase order. So this is correct. So this message, but the order number entered is a sales order. It's opposite. And so I'm just going to switch those message box. It's a little bit confusing. So basically I want to make sure that we're on the right track here. Okay, so that's exactly what we're going to do. So basically when we change it, as long as B8 is a value, if they have entered something incorrect, we're going to let them know. If I try to enter something that doesn't exist, we're going to let them please enter a correct order ID. So we know that that doesn't exist. Okay, so that message box is going to come up. We could probably clear the contents, range K4 dot clear contents. So we're going to clear the fields, clear contents. Okay, clearing the field if they've entered something incorrect. Okay, so otherwise what we're going to do is I want to take that order ID, whatever order ID they just entered because it's now correct, and I want to place it directly inside B4. So B4 is going to take on whatever's in K4. So here, B4 equals K4. And then we're going to run a macro called order load. That's the macro that I want to go over with you now, called order load. First thing we're going to do is clear out some fields, all the fields associated to that. If B5 equals empty, then please enter a correct order to load in case there's current. Okay, we want to get the order row. What is the order row associated? And I want to know the order type. This is important. So this is actually purchased. So this would be purchased. Okay, if the order type is purchased, okay, so basically I want to extract that, and I'll show you that. Order type is going to come from B, right? We know the row. We know that the order type is directly in column B right here. So I want to know that order type. So if we go back in there, I want to make sure that we've associated. So I'm going to update this as I did to order type. So this is going to be purchase, and B2 equals sales order, sales order. There we go. That's wrong. Then is a purchase order. Please select on purchase order. Okay, perfect. So let's take a look at that. If the order type equals sales, just had this backwards. Want to let the user know sales and purchase order. I know it looks the same, but it's not. Purchases, that was the issue. Okay, so basically we want to make sure that you're, so we know we just entered a sales order. If I enter 40, we know that that is a purchase order. So the order number is a purchase order. Please select on purchases and enter that again. That's exactly what I want. Purchases, entering that purchase order because it's a purchase order so that it'll show up. Okay, so we're just letting the user know to make sure that they've selected. Okay, then what I want to do is I want to set E5 to whatever's the name. Whatever name is located in column C, I'm going to put that directly in E5. And I also want to put what is in H4, the date. Now remember, the total is automatic. All we need to do is enter the date and enter the name. And then of course we're going to load, now we need to load the items associated with that. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to load the items. So what we want to do is I want to load all the items associated with order 40. We know order 40 is located in B4. So if I look in the order items here and I have an advanced filter and I only want to know the items associated with 40, all I need to do is just create a link to B4. And I've done that right here. This is our criteria. Running an advanced filter, only those items associated with order number 40 will appear right here. And that's exactly what we're going to do. The last row, if it's less than 4, we're going to exit the sub out of our order items, focusing just on the order items here. An advanced filter, our criteria is M2. Our results are going to go P2 through X2. Determine the last results row. If it's less than 3, we're going to exit the sub. We're going to run a loop from 3 to the last results row. That item row is going to be in column W. That item row is very important. I need to know if I'm going to place it in 9, 10, or 11, right? We need to know what row to place it in 9, 10, or 11. Very important. So we have that. So then what I want to do is I want to then bring in all the information. D all the way through, not the total, D all the way through G is going to, I'm going to place that. That's going to come directly from here, right here, R through U, bring in the total, not the total because it's automated. Then lastly, I want to bring in that database row in X. So 2 lines of code to do just that. D through G equals R through V, actually it should be R through U, should not be V, right? Because we want to make sure we don't need to bring in that total. Okay, so that's correct. The total's a formula, we don't want to bring that in. Okay, now what we want to do inside I just want to bring the database row. It's going to come directly from X. So we're bringing it here. So we want to bring in that total. Here, I want that database row to come in column I, and that's going to come directly from X. Of course, That's all we need to do to make sure that the database row is associated. And that's important because if we make a change, we want to make sure it's updated. Okay, order delete, the last macro that we go before we get to the dashboard. That's going to be cool. Inventory, deleting the order. Basically, all I need to do is know, is there a row that's associated? If there is, row 43, we know what row to delete. And then we also want to delete the associated rows or clear the contents of the associated rows on our items. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Giving the user the option, are you sure you want to delete this order? If B5 is empty, meaning it's not saved, we can skip deleting the row. Order row is going to be equal to B5. We're going to delete the entire row from the orders. And then we're going to delete the order items or clear out the order items. So focusing on the order items, again, we're going to run the exact same advanced filter right here, getting the results. And this time what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be returning the database row and I'm going to clear out the contents. So if I'm clearing out 120, basically all I'm doing, instead of deleting the entire row, which could create issues sometimes, I'm simply going to clear out the contents and then resort the list. And that's what we've been doing lately. To do that, we're going to get the last row, running our advanced filter exactly as we just did, determining the last row. We're going to run the loop just as we did before, from 3 all the way to the last row, extracting the database row from column X, very important. Item database row is going to be an X, okay? And then column A through I, we're going to clear the contents. It's going to clear it out. So we can clear the contents out. I like that better than delete, but we just have to be careful that we really never want spaces with data. So to do that, we really should make sure that we resort the list so that we can remove those blank rows. And that's what we're going to do next. Sort remaining fields to clear the blank rows, sorting by ID. So we're going to use the sort, clear the fields, and add a key, the order items A4. Okay, that's our order ID. We're going to sort ascending. Our range is going to be A4 all the way to the last row. And then all we need to do, we've all determined it, apply that sort, and then just run order add new. Printing, very, very easy. So that's all we need to do. So inventory, deleting it, we can delete an order just by that. Very, very simple. Okay, very, very cool. Let's move these up a little bit just because I want to make sure that they're below that line. Okay, I like that. Okay, very, very nice. So we know how we can delete an order. If you want to do, let's go ahead and delete this order, make sure it's working. Are you sure you want to delete this order? Yes, deleting the order is going to clear everything out automatically, going to go into the add new stage. And if we take a look inside our orders, we look down here, 40 is gone. If we look in our order items, we see that order items associated with that are no longer here and everything's been sorted properly. Okay, very good. So we see that delete order works just fine. Make sure we save our work. Now what we want to do is we want to print the order. So let's go ahead and put in, I think 33, I don't remember which order is which. Okay, that looks pretty bad. Let's go ahead and add that in here. Okay, all right, I like that. Get some saving and updating. That's order 33. Because I created a lot of fake data orders, so that's why we had kind of weird rows. Okay, that looks better. So we see that order number. What I want to do now is I want to print this order that's associated. So if I click here, I want to determine the last row, and I want to start the print range from D4 all the way to the last row, and then print the order, and it'll print to the default printer. So if I click print, it's going to print to my Snagit. It's going to go to Snagit. It's going to print this order right here. How do we do that? Okay, well, we're going to determine the last row based on column D. That's the last row. We want to know that last row. We're going to set that print range. So that page setup, that print area is going to start out in D4. It's going to go all the way through H, and we want the last row. Then all we need to do is just print it out. Now, if we want to see what we're printing, we can do here. We don't need the from and to. We just want to make sure we're going to use the active printer. We could set a specific printer here if we wanted to. We're going to print the file. No, we're going to leave that blank. Collate, we're going to leave that blank. We want to ignore print areas false. So we do want to honor those print areas. That's it for print. Okay, very, very cool. That is it for us. Now we're ready to take on the dashboard. So we've covered customers, suppliers, products, purchases, sales orders, and now we're going to go over an incredible dashboard. So I've got a blank space. It's going to debug it because, of course, we haven't created this dashboard group yet, which is fine. I'm going to comment that out. We will be creating that very, very soon. That's going to be a group of shapes that we're going to focus on the dashboard. Okay, so when I click on dashboard again, we're not going to get that error. All we have is a blank area. All right, to help us create the dashboard, we've got some data, and it's going to be located on a sheet called dashboard data. So I've prepared this data to make it a little bit easier for you. I've got total sales by month for the current year. I've got the total sales by the current month, so it means every day all the purchases and sales. I've got the top products by hand. We need a pivot for that. All the top products and how many we have of those. And also I want the profit per the month, and of course the profit per the year. And I'm going to be putting those all into some charts and data inside that. So let's go ahead and start with that. Let's do the total sales by month. So basically what I want to do is I want to know all the sales. We don't have any sales in November, December. I want to know all the sales by month. So I'm going to insert here, click on insert, and I want to we'll put in something like a 2D bar chart for this. Total sales by month. This is pretty easily here. So I'm going to total sales. I want to make a dynamic header. So I'm going to use equals. I'm going to be total sales by month because it's changed automatically. So great. So how do we get this data? So let's take a look at the data. We're going to use the upper, total sales by month, and I want the year of today. That's going to get us the current year. Perfect. How do we get the total sales for January? Now remember, I've got some named ranges that we went over. We'll review. I want to know the order total. Remember, that's all the total orders. That named range is based on all of them here. I've got order totals, I've got named ranges for order type, and I've got named ranges for order date. So all of that will really help us inside this data. So to do that, we're going to use the sum ifs. I want to sum the order total, and it's going to be based on type. I want to know only sales type. And I want to base it on a very specific date. I want it only for January. January's month number 1. We are in row number 3. Notice we're on row number 3. So by knowing that, it's going to help us out. I want to know basically greater than the 1st of January of the current year. So we're going to use the date feature. The year is going to be the year of today. What's the month? The month is for month number 1. How do I get the month number from the row? If I know the row is 3 and I subtract 2, that's going to get us 1. And that way, if we copy down the formula, the month numbers are going to grow, which is exactly what I have. So this will give me month number 1, and I want the first day of the month. But I also want it less than or equal to the last day of the month. So I'm going to use that same date here, the same January date, except this time I'm going to wrap it in EO month. That's going to be the end, the last day of the month, EO month. And that's going to give us the exact month. We don't want months before or after, so we're going to put 0 here. If I hit enter, that's going to automatically calculate that. By copying and pasting these formulas down, if we copy and bringing these formulas down, we can simply extrapolate that for every single month, the total sales for each month. So now we understand how we get the data, and we get the data in here. So total sales by month. Okay, that's pretty much it the way we want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do Control X, and then I'm going to go into our inventory management. I'm going to do Control V. Okay, so I want total sales by month. I'm going to bring it up here a little bit, and I'll bring it all the way down here because it's going to be, I don't want it that far. But okay, that's about right. So that looks good. I'm going to give this a little bit of an update so it looks good. So I'm going to drop this down because we're going to be using it a little bit. So for this, I'm going to give it, we can give it some color theme. So I'm going to give it a color about like this. That'll give it the color theme. It's already there on that. The format we're going to give, we don't want any fill on that. So we'll go to no fill. And we also don't want any outline. So we'll go to no outlines on that. I'm going to give it the text. I want the same color as so the text fill is going to be this. And I'm going to make that bold. So we're going to do the bold on the text fill. And also for this text, I'm going to increase the font and also give it that same color. And also do a little bold so we can see it out. Okay, that looks nice. I'm going to get rid of these grid lines. I really don't need them. I'm going to hold that and just use delete. That's going to get rid of them. I want a little bit updated look and feel for these bars, and I also want to show the data labels. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to add the data labels on that. So we'll click add data labels. So I want to format these data labels, again, increasing that and then bolding that. So that's going to give us a nice look on that. Okay, very good. So now that we have that, but this bar, I want to make it a little bit nicer. So I'm going to go into the format. Also, we can use Control 1 for that. And we're going to give it the fill. And we don't need the color on that. So what is that fill going to be? I'm going to use, let's select on this one again. That's what I want. Okay, so the fill's automatic. That's sufficient. Making sure I don't necessarily need a border, so no line on that. Here, what I want to do is I'm going to give it a little bit of a shadow on that to make it stand out a little bit, the lower right shadow. And also inside we can do, let's do 3D format here, and we'll do a bevel on that. Okay, that looks really nice. I like the way that looks. If we want to show a little bit, we can show a little bit less of gap width to make those a little bit bigger. Looking very, very nice. Okay, I like the way that's looking. Cool. Okay, good. What else do we want to have? I want to be able to have more than one grass. I think that looks really good the way it is. We will group it. Oh, we want to add these. We don't really need this lower, and I think that's unnecessary. We can remove that. Okay, looking pretty good. It's a little bit too tall. Remove this, it looks nice. So we can keep it big because when we usually remove the top, it's gonna expand that whole area. Okay, good, that's total sales by month. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. So we're gonna go back into the dashboard data. And now we're gonna go focus on May purchases and sales. So I'm gonna select on this, all the data here, and I'm going to insert, and why don't we insert, let's say a 2D column, okay? And this is going to cover both purchases and sales. So we're going to change the color on this, change it to our theme color here. The chart title is going to be dynamic, and we'll go over the information on how we receive this, and the chart title is going to be this May purchases here. Okay, so how did we get this data? So basically this is based on a single day of the current month. So the purchases are going to use a simple sum if. We're basing on order total, order type for only purchases, and the order date is going to be based on D3. So the order date is based on D3. If you see D3, it's just a 1. How do we know that that's a date? That's actually a full date. So just formatted to show a date. So if I were to show it in a short date format, you would see that's the full date. However, I've customized the date. If I go into the more number formats and I go into the custom, I'm going to show a single day. So I'm just going to put D, and that's going to show that single day. That's what I want to show you. So how do I get the date? So getting the day, I can use the day based on that, just based on the row number. Again, the date of the current year. The month is going to be the current month. But what about the day? I want the first day of the month in row 3. If I know it's row 3 and I subtract 2, that's going to get us the first day of the month. It makes it dynamic based on the row number so that this is the second day and third day and so on and so forth. So in actuality, this is the day. Then if I want to know all the purchases made on this day, day 1, I could just do using sum ifs, order date based on D3. And if I bring this down, it's going to go all the purchases for the current day. Sales are going to be exactly the same, except we're looking for order type sales and not purchases. That's how I get all the data. And then, of course, all I need to do is just simply copy that and bring down the formulas here by pasting in those formulas here. And that's how it's going to happen. Okay, great. So we have all the data that we want for this. And now we're ready to format that accordingly. So again, all we need to do is just click on it, use Control X, go inventory, and then we're just going to paste it right here using Control V. And that's going to paste it right there. Okay, we can expand that a little bit so we can do it all the way to say, let's say about right here. All right, so that gives it some nice idea. And then we're going to format that accordingly just as we have before. So we want to know all the purchases in May. Dropping this back down here, we're going to use it a little bit. In the format section, we are going to no shape fill and no shape border on that. The May purchases, we are going to color that our same color blue, making it bold here, just the way we have it, everything else. Also, we want to increase the font here and color that blue. Same thing with the dates here, blue, and increasing the font to size 10. Getting rid of these grid lines inside it, we really don't need those. And I do want to expand that. I'm going to select on this, giving this color, making sure that it's set on our unique color, which it already is. That's good. Selecting on it and then using, let's go ahead and select on this. Using Control 1, we're going to take a look inside. I want to format these. If I take a look inside here, series options look good. That's the way I want it. I'm just going to select on one, actually, all of them here. So how do we do that? So what I want to do is I want to give them a little bit of a format on here. So individually, selecting on them, we're going to go inside here. And then what I want to do is I'm going to reduce the gap width. That's going to increase it a little bit, the size of it. There we go. I like that. We've got our legend up here. So we're going to put our legend, let's put it a little bit above. We'll put it up here. I like it better there. I'm going to format the legend, increase that, bold it, just way nice. Also color these. Okay, so that's looking really good. I like the way that looks, but we're going to give it a little bit of the same look and feature that we have. Also would like to put a shadow on it. So we're going to put a slight shadow on it. Maybe not a full shadow if it looks too much, and just a little bit less on the blur and less on the distance here. Okay, so it's going to be slight. I also would like to make it so that we're going to add that same 3D format using the same features. That looks very nice. Okay, very good. I'm still going to reduce the gap width and the overlap here. That looks okay. Okay, I like that. That looks really nice. We have that. Of course, we have more data to help a little bit. Looking very good. So we have our information. And we want to do the same here. So I'm going to take this. I also want to do the same for our purchases here, adding those in so we can do the purchase as well, giving it that 3D format here, the bevel here. We also want to do that. And of course, that we've already got the gap width. Everything looks really good. Also, we're going to add in the shadow just as we did before on that. Okay, very, very good. Bringing this down here and down here. Okay, so everything's simple and looks really nice. It's got a nice look. We can see purchases and sales. To what else do we want to add? I want to add the top products by value. Top products, I'm going to put them on the right side here. I want to know what are the top products. So if I take a look back inside the dashboard data, I've created a pivot here. So if we take a look inside here, we see that we've got a nice little pivot chart here to take a look at the top products on hand by value. And so how do we create that pivot? If we go into the products and take a look, we've created a table out of this. So we've got already a table on that. And if I want to insert, we could take a look here inside a pivot chart and pivot table. We could do that. And it's going to be based on the products. And we're going to put it in an existing worksheet. And I'm going to select location, although we already have it, inside the dashboard data. And we can place it just right here. And click OK. Okay, so what that's going to do is insert a pivot. Now what we have here, if we take a look at our existing pivot, we see we've got product name and sum of value on. So if we do the same thing, clicking on here, product name here, bringing it down inside there. It's already there here for us. And also what we want the value on hand. Perfect. That's just the way I like it. But what I want to do is I want to know the top ones. Let's get rid of this chart for now. We're going to build another one in just a moment so you can see every step. Okay, so now we've got data, but what I want to know is I want to sort by the top. So how do we do that? If I take a look at this, and we want to summarize values, but I want to sort them. So how are we going to do that? Well, all we need to do is just right click on any one. What we're going to do is I want to sort and then sort the largest to smallest. So largest to smallest here. So that's going to sort them automatically. Now we want to format those. I really don't want the cents in here. So we really want to format. If we go into the value field settings, we take a look down here and the number format here, we're going to set the number format. It's going to set it, we can set it to currency, but we can set it to no decimals. Clicking OK. And click OK. All right, so that's going to set up, but I really want to show only maybe the top one. So how do we do that? So we can do some value filters. I want to select that. Oops, that's a little bit below that. Let's go scroll up here so you guys can see it. So we're going to select some value filters. So how are we going to do that? We can select here, this here. We're going to select the value filters, and we want the top 10. And we want the top 10 items, sum of value on it, and clicking OK. I also really don't want to show anything with a zero value. So we can go in here and also in the value filters here. And I'm just going to show anything any greater than value 0. So I'm just going to put 0 in here. And that's going to only show those greater than 0. Okay, very good. So that's going to shorten up our list. It's going to only show those. So now what I want to do is I want to create basically another chart for the data that we have here. Okay, so now you can see where we are up to this point. So we get all of that information here. I've created a custom title here called Top Products on Hand by Value. Okay, so take a look inside here. What we're going to do is we're going to select this data here, row labels, and we're going to do Insert. And we're going to go click here, and I want to make sure we're going to use a 2D barcode. So that looks good. Okay, so I like the way that that looks there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to customize that, and we're going to use the select data. So actually we can use either one of data, but I'll use the existing data. So I'm going to delete that because this was just a sample. We can use our current. We can delete that. We don't need that. I'm going to use this data right here because that's the one we're focused on. Okay, so we can insert here. Again, look in here, 2D bar chart. We've got that here. All right, good. So I'm going to set that custom header. It's going to be equal to, I'm going to put that right located in H1, top products on hand by value. Okay, that looks very good. We're going to customize that again inside our sheet. I'm going to do Control X, then I'm going to go back to the inventory management, and I'm going to do Control V right in here. Okay, that's going to bring it in. So we got all of information here. And we're going to shrink it up, and then we're going to customize it. So I'm going to right click here. I don't need to show the field buttons on the charts. We can hide those. Going to bring it down here. This could be a lot of products, so I do want to extend vertically. Once we have a lot of products, we're going to show that. All right, this is looking really good. Let's continue to format this. Shape fill, none. We don't need that. No border on that. Just as we've done before, removing the grid lines, which we don't need that. Setting the same formats that we have. The text here, we want it. We're going to increase the font to 10 on that. And then I'll make them bold and maybe italics on this one. This one's going to be here. We want to color that and then bold just as we've done the others here. And okay, I like the way that that looks. That's looking really good. We're going to add, sometimes it's a little bit hard to see. We're going to add a background onto that before we go. So inside the color, I want to make sure that it's the same color as our theme, which it is here. And we're going to give it that same style as we have. So I'm going to do Control 1. What that's going to do is going to launch that format here. We can reduce the gap width just a little bit if we want to. Going to go in the fill here. And also the border is going to be no line. We're going to add some presets on the shadow, just as we've done before here. And also I want to do the bevel, a nice bevel here to give it that little 3D look. Okay, that's looking really good. So we've got to show our top product, but I do want to show them in reverse order. I want to show the highest to the top. So how are we going to do that? Well, if we select on here, we go in here, and we want to make sure that we're going to add in the series options here. So inside there, I want to sort the highest. So I'm going to select here inside our text here, our axis, and then what we're going to do is we're going to categorize in reverse order. So I'm going to select that, and it's going to reverse order. And I don't need the legend here, so we can remove that. I do want some labels on that. We got to add labels to the other ones as well, so we don't want to forget that. So I'm going to right click here, and then we're going to add the data labels here, formatting those data labels just as we've done before. And there we go. Okay, let's add data labels here. It could get a lot if we do them on here. So I'm going to add the data labels on this one, formatting those data labels here. But it looks nice. It's got a good look. All right, things are looking really, really good. We've got just 2 more small donuts to add, and then we'll be done. I don't think we need this. I think that's a little bit extra on there, so we can remove that top bar, that chart area. We don't need that. We don't need a legend. Also, looking pretty good. Okay, I like that. It's looking really good. Okay, I've got 2 donut charts I'm going to be adding up here, one for May profit and one for the year profit. We're going to get that information here. So if we take a look in the May profit, what I want to make sure is that we're going to show both the sales and the profit amount, and then the profit percentage I want to show in there too. So how are we going to do that? Well, the best way to do that is just select on our data and create that donut. So I'm going to click on holding the control, both month sales and month profit. I'm going to insert here, get a donut chart, clicking on the donut, and that's going to do just that, inserting that donut. Okay, I'm going to bring our legend up here. I want to show the legend, but I'm going to show it on top of that. So I'm going to bring it up to the top. I'm bringing this down a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and add in that custom chart title. That's going to be equals here, May profit. All right, very good. I like the way that that looks. And what we can do is we can then customize that. So we're going to go inside our colors here. I want to add our color theme here, making sure that it's a color theme. We can format that here. No shape fill, no borders there on that. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this one, not Control X in this case, and I am going to go inside and I'm going to paste it directly inside here. That's going to be our May profit. Now we'll be customizing that accordingly. All right, so let's add a little bit of information here, a little bit of a bigger donut size here. I don't want any borders on that, so we'll go to no lines on that. Also, what I want to do is I'm going to do the same, adding a little bit of a shadow just as we've done before. Adding a bevel just as we've done before with the rest of it. That looks good. And then I want to make sure that the font is the same as we have. Again, increasing this to 10 in the blue. That looks very nice. Okay, but I want to add the profit percentage. I want to add it directly in here. So insert, shapes, text box. I'm going to put it directly inside here. Now what's going to be in here? I'm going to do equals, and I want the profit percentage for May. So equals, where is it located? Located directly in here, inside L5, and I'm going to hit enter. What that's going to do is add that in. So I'm going to center that, giving it a color. Let's go to 28 or something like that. Okay, centering that inside there, that looks really good, and should, since we've now placed it in, it should move with it accordingly. So if I move this, it should move it automatically. Okay, that's looking really quite nice. I like that. Let's add some labels onto that. So we're going to add data labels onto that, and I'm going to just bring them a little bit on the outside. I want those data labels to just be on the outside. So let's go into label options, and we can show value from sales, series names. And that looks pretty good, but I just want to bring them out a little bit here, and then I want to format them accordingly just as we have had before. So bold and then increasing that. Okay, so we have some nice data labels. We're showing the monthly profit. We're showing the profit percentage. Looking pretty good. I think we can reduce the size a little bit here. And that looks quite nice. All right, so now all we need to do is just create one more for the annual profit, and we're going to put it in. So back inside our dashboard data, I've got this here, but what I want to do is I want to select the data. This way, data is going to be a little bit different. Instead of this, I'm going to now change it to year sales and year profit, holding down the control. So that's going to add in the year data. So now we have our year sales. All I need to do is update the data label here. It's going to be equal to the 2023 profit here. So adding that in, don't select that again here. even air, and it's going to equal to this one right here, located in N1. Okay, so now we have that. So now what we can do now, since we don't need this anymore, I'm going to do Control X on here, go back in here, and then Control V, and that's going to paste it here. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. Again, no line. We're going to select here. We don't want any line on that one. Again, adding in the shadow, just as we've done before. This repetition helps. Adding in the bevel. We've already got the colors here. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Okay, so selecting on here, this is the one we don't want the line on here. This is the one where we do want the shadow here, and we want the bevel here. Perfect. So now it's looking very much like it. I also want to do the same, just as I did before, and make sure the donut hole size, I don't remember this size, so let's double check on that. This one was 65%. Let's make sure this one is also 65% so that they're equal. I also want to make sure that they're both the same size, so we're going to click on here. I'm going to reduce this one just a little bit so that they don't overlap, increasing the width. Okay, and we can increase the size of this a little bit. Okay, that looks very good. We're going to do the same with this. We're going to take a look at the size of the shape, the total shape. That's format. We'll do, let's say, 3 and 4. So we'll just change this to 3 so that they're both even. I'm going to hold down the Control, Shape Format. The height is going to be 3, and this one's going to be 4. So they're both going to be equal shape. Now all we need to do is just increase the graph on the inside, perfect, so that they're about equal. And then we need to increase that so they both show there. Okay, I like the way that's looking. We'll center that and make sure that that looks streamlined and good. Also, changing the text here, bold here, increasing the text font to 10 font there, and changing that to blue. Let's update this, make sure that that's centered, and we also want to show the percentage sign, so adding that. Okay, now what I want to do is do the same thing for this, adding that, and of course adding the data labels in here. So we'll add the data labels here, bring them out to the outside a little bit, just to where they are, looking nice. Selecting on both outside and then back inside on the data labels, bold, and then increasing the font size to 10. We're going to insert that. I'm going to select on this. I'm going to insert shapes, again, just as we did before, a text box as we did before. Here's the text box. It's going to be equal. This time I want the annual percentage for the current year, so that's going to be located in the dashboard. That's going to be located, that profit right here in O4. Okay, so formatting that just as we did before, selecting on it, centering that, and I believe it was 28 was a font size. Let's double check that. 28 is correct. Okay, so we've got a 72% profit margin here. It's been a long video. Okay, this one needs to be expanded so we show both the month sales and the month profit. Nice. That's looking good. That's looking good here. Everything's looking good, but it's a little bit hard, the background needs to be a little bit less. So let's close this out. Let's take a quick look. So what I mean is I'd like to have something in the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a shape, and I'm going to use a rounded corner. So I'm going to expand that here. I'm going to put this behind it. I'm going to group it. So I'm going to reduce the corners a little bit, and I'm going to set it to our shape. I'm going to use this shape fill, but of course it's going to have a transparency of about 50%. So we're going to go into the more fill colors. I'm going to change the transparency to about 50% and click OK. And I'm going to place this, of course, behind it, send to the back. Okay, so that looks nice. I really like the way that that looks. So we've got everything here on side art. Let's bring this up to make sure that everything fits within the region. Okay, so we've got everything. Let's hide our columns. We can hide columns A and B now. So just as we said, no. All right, so that's looking really good. I like the way that that looks. And so what I want to do is I want to group these. Remember, inside our code, let's take a look, not this, well, I got two workbooks open. Inside our menu macros, we've got dashboard group. So we need to create a group based on this name, and then we can uncomment that out. So I'm going to uncomment that out now. And so what I want to do is I want to take all of these shapes, everything that we have here, and I want to put it in one single group and call it dashboard group. So we've selected everything. I'm going to group it all together. Now make sure that when you grouped it all together, we want to go in control one will do it. I want to make sure that we are automatically not setting that move but don't size on that group. That's important. Okay, good. I like that, and giving that name, control V, dashboard group. Okay, so now we've already uncommented here. There was another one inside the dashboard. We got to make sure this one is the right one. That's the one. So basically, I want to hide the dashboard group when we select everything, and I want to show it when we show the dashboard. All right, so let's take a look. Use the selection. We can undo that, select off that, and select back the dashboard. and we've got the dashboard. Okay, so let's take a quick look inside this. The only thing in the dashboard is we are going to refresh all the data and we're going to undo the freeze pane. So notice that we're not freezing the panes. Very, very, very cool. This is a really fantastic training. In this training, if we're going to review this, I want to make sure that you understand that I'm here to help you. So please let me know what it is that I can do. I respond to each and every comment, of course, on YouTube and email as well. Let me know how I can serve you, how I can help you. In this training, we created an incredible inventory management system, and we put it all on the same sheet. All the features and functions are on a single sheet. We've got customers where we were able to add new customers, update customers, delete customers. Oh, there's one thing I forgot. I want to show you how to hide these. Notice it's got text and numbers. We're going to go into home. I knew I forgot something. More number format, right? All you need to do is use a custom format and 3 semicolons. Why 3 semicolons? Because it's text and it is numbers. So 3 semicolons. If it was just numbers, 2 semicolons. Click OK. Now they're hidden. And we'll do the same thing for suppliers, products. I don't need to do that in the training, but that's how we hide all the data. I'll make sure that when you get it is hidden. That's all we need to do. Adding new customers. We have adding new suppliers, products, adding and updating, purchases, sales orders, and an incredible dashboard, all wrapped into one incredible inventory management. And we designed it all from scratch on the screen in front of you, this sheet. Thank you so much for joining me on these really long trainings. I do appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe, click the notification icon bell, comment below, like the video. I really do appreciate when you like that. That helps for the YouTube algorithms. Let me know if you have any ideas of what you want to see on training coming up, and we'll see you next week. Thanks again.